Good evening to everybody. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all members of the Housing and Communities Overview and Scrutiny panel, officers, members of the public and press in attendance today at today's meeting of the 17th September. Welcome to those who may be watching the meeting live on YouTube. I'm Councillor Steve Clark, Chairman of the Housing and Communities Overview and Scrutiny panel. I'd now like to hand over to Democratic Services to read the housekeeping note.
Thank you, Chairman. Please note that this meeting is being broadcast live on the Council's website and on YouTube. It will remain available for a minimum of 12 months. I would remind those in attendance to use your microphone when speaking and to remember to switch it off once you have finished speaking. Please switch any mobile devices to a silent setting for the duration of the meeting. If the fire alarm rings during the meeting, please can everyone leave the room immediately and use the nearest fire exit. Do not use the lift. Please go to the fire assembly point, which is located at the bottom of the car park where the garages are located.
For the benefit of those watching the meeting online, please would members introduce themselves during the meeting, if not already introduced by name. We've received no apologies. I think looking around we have a full house tonight, so that's good news. Item 1 on the agenda to approve the minutes of the last meeting on the 18th of June. Everybody happy with me sign those minutes in due course? Thank you. Do any members have any declarations of interest to declare? No, thank you. Public participation? Sorry, yes, Patrick.
Yeah, as a principal contractor, I work with Freedom Leisure on various of their schemes, so I would just like to declare that.
Public participation, we have none. Item 4 is Freedom Leisure annual performance report. Pal, are you going to introduce the persons present?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everyone. My name is Paf and I'm a Contract Relationship Officer responsible for monitoring of the leisure contract. We invited our partners today to present their annual performance reports. To my right, representatives from Freedom Leisure, Matt Wickham, Chief Operating Officer, Darren Jones, Area Manager for the partnership, and Area Technical Manager, Ross Archibald. And to my left, a representation from My Time Active, Adam Freeman, Centre Manager for Dibden Golf Course, and Anthony Richards, Area Manager for My Time Active. I would like to hand over now to Matt Wickham to present an annual report for Freedom Leisure.
Thank you, Pav. Good evening, everyone. Really pleased to be here this evening to report back on the year July 24 to June 25. I should say that Darren would normally, as our area manager, would normally present this evening, but as this is day 2 or so of week 3, we thought that would be a little bit unfair to report on a year that he wasn't here. So I'm going to cover off today, but between Darren, Ross and myself, if you have questions, we'll be happy to cover those. Very conscious that you've got quite a tight schedule this evening, so I'm not going to go through in detail on every slide, but if there is any questions, very happy to cover those off at the end. A very brief reminder, Freedom Leisure, I'm sure many of you will know by now, but we're a not-for-profit leisure organisation. We don't have shareholders, so everything we generate goes back into the business, back into the communities that we're serving. Some really clear focuses around increasing participation, improving services, and improving quality of life and the well-being of the communities that we serve. That's kind of why we're here, and hopefully over the next few slides we can demonstrate how we achieve that. Just looking at some headline stats, and we tend to default to a couple of headline numbers in terms of memberships, Learn to Swim customers and participation. Tends to be quite a key topic for us. What we can see on there actually is a fairly steady year. The orange is the line for the year that we're reporting on compared with the year before. So I think we're pretty pleased with how we've held up at the back end of the previous year and then held those numbers throughout. So pretty positive perspective from our side, and that's off the back of the investment from the year before. In terms of Learn to Swim, fairly similar in terms of holding sort of the position that we were before, slight drop off at the end. A couple of little reasons for that, but equally we did have a really big boom post-COVID, and we've managed to hold those numbers still. So we're really quite pleased with where we're at currently. terms of customer feedback, we obviously analyse all of the data and feedback that we get from all of our customers. I think it's the bits to note on here is that we're getting back to customers 59% within 7 days, but we actually need to improve upon that. So I think that's one area that we've identified as an area for improvement, and that should be significantly higher, something that Darren and Ross will be working on, no doubt, over the coming weeks. But we are getting back to all customers. I think that's really important. In terms of where the comments are coming from, and bearing in mind these aren't all complaints, these are just general feedbacks from customers. A lot of those around fitness classes and swimming lessons. And generally that will be around the types of classes, people wanting more classes, more of the same. Some of that will be about positive feedback from about our instructors, which we get an awful lot of good feedback from. And likewise from swimming lessons. A couple of the things we're doing to improve this even further, introducing some more technology. There's a product called Course Pro which helps us manage the lessons, and that's actually got an element of communication back to parents and guardians, so they can see how their children are progressing through the stages. So that will help significantly. And also we've just had updates to our own Freedom Leisure app, which again is an improvement in terms of the way we communicate with our customers. In terms of utilities, a big focus for us, and I'll cover that briefly in some later slides, but you'll be fully aware of the utility crisis and how that hit leisure, and actually how, as a council, you've supported through that process as well. But some pretty good performance for electricity, 86,000 kilowatt savings versus the previous year. Helps at the back end, certainly, by the introduction of the solar PV on the roof at Applemore specifically. But some good work throughout the year as well, and that's partly down to the housekeeping measures that we've put in place to make sure we're managing that as closely as possible. We've always been really focused on utilities. It's fair to say over the last couple of years we've become even more focused for obvious reasons. In terms of gas, not quite as positive picture, but primarily just because of 2 months and 2 issues. We had an issue with the pool at New Milton in July and Ringwood in late August, and that's slightly skewed the figures. But what we are seeing, certainly at the back end of the last quarter, is significant improvement, and that will continue and has continued through into the next financial year as well. Participation, really pleasing to report an increase in participation, 76,000 per person increase in participation throughout the facilities over the full year period. I think that's really sort of testament down to the activities, the programmes and the work that's being undertaken and delivered locally by the team. And again, I'll come and talk about some of those specific activities later, but pretty much every month in there we're improving on the previous year, which I think is fantastic. What's helped that is some of our investments. So you may recall that in the previous year we had fitness, the gym refurbishments at New Milton, Applemore and Totton. In the last year that we're reporting on now, we upgraded the facilities at Lymington. I don't need to go into great detail, but it's a lovely photo of some of our councillors on the bikes there, exercising. Yeah, that's included new equipment, upgraded equipment, improving the flooring, the decor, expanding the freeway. It's everything you'd expect from a modern gym, which Lymington certainly was slightly lacking. We've now brought that into sort of modern times. We've also improved the cycle studio in that particular site. And then we've gone on to improve the health suite at Applemore as well. That's the slide I was looking forward to. The next one there, that's it. What you've then seen is a total investment to date over the contract period of just over 4 million, 4.1 million, which I think is significant in terms of that investment back into the facilities, back into the communities. That's helped improve the financial performance, although there's still room for improvement, but it's also helped improve the participation levels and customer satisfaction within the facilities. There's the health suite photo, there we go. And the health suite, some investment from the council there to improve the health suite facilities at Applemore, which were actually closed since COVID and weren't back in use, now back in use and being really well received by the customers. One of the projects, there's a rogue bunch there as well. Sam's your one out, I guess, is she amongst the middle-aged men. Sorry, Pav, not you, just the rest of us. But that's off the back of some swimming pool support fund initiative that was delivered sort of April time. That was completed this year. and significant investment. And you probably saw the press releases at the time, but there's not much of the roof. That's probably the only bit that we're standing on, actually, that hasn't had solar PV installed at Applemore now. And that's certainly reflected in some of the figures that we've seen back. So really positive and a great example of partnership working to deliver that project overall and just about within the timescales, coupled with other works that needed to happen, including some roof works as well. On to some of the healthy communities, another really key area that's helped us support the growth in participation, and specifically around our GP referral, health referral programs. We're offering 86.5 hours a week of access and instructor-led sessions across the 5 sites, focusing on some pretty specific conditions, falls prevention, COPD and cardiac rehab. And these sessions include stuff like health circuits, chair and yoga Pilates and cycling for joint pain. I think it's really, really important that we carried on the great work that was actually being delivered by the council before we got involved in the contract, and that's growing year on year now, and we fully intend to keep that working on that same trajectory. So it listed some of our partners up there and some of the other activities that we're working with in terms of local hospitals. We're delivering an awful lot of SEND sessions now, HAF session, which is the holiday and food provision during the holidays. So making sure we're targeting all elements of the community, and it's not just focused on one particular element that we're targeting. We're trying to cover all bases as much as we possibly can and open up the facilities and the services that we provide on your behalf to as many people as we possibly can. One of our specific sessions here is the New Milton Youth Trust collaboration funded by Be Well. This is targeting children not in employment, education or training, so children and young adults, sorry. This is, I think that's the top right photo up there. A really positive session, 6 months, fully funded memberships for those people that can't afford it and will benefit from access. Currently only got 17 participants, but this is something that needs to grow, and it will continue to grow and has continued to grow, and it's really important that we don't cut a session just because the numbers might be perceived as low. The impact for those 17 students, participants is significant, and that's why it should continue. And a really positive group session there we're running with the Little Leapfrogs and the Mum and Baby circuits as well, and I think, yeah, just a sample of what we're offering. I think this probably sums up our healthy communities in terms of our years in numbers. In terms of referrals onto the programme, that's 885 referrals, which is up on last year. We've received some funding. That's fantastic because that enables us to deliver more. But we deliver as much as we can without that funding, but it just gives us a little push in the right direction. 18,000, almost 19,000 attendances at health referral classes, and almost 5,000 on our Forever Active scheme, which is a scheme available for older people to access and participate in physical activity. Got a couple of testimonials over the next few pages. I won't read them out, they're on the screen, but really it's an example of how we're supporting individuals to have access to the facilities and helping them either pre-op, post-op and into their recovery, and hopefully going on to have a long, healthy lives as a result. And I think that's fantastic. The next example, I think, is actually really worth noting in terms of this is a statement from NHS. For every 100 patients who undergo rehabilitation, faster recovery times enable the hospital to free up 190 additional surgery slots. So I think it's important to note the impact we're having on the local community, but actually the wider community in terms of how they can, as a result, access more. Those people that really need those surgery slots can access those. It might not sound a lot, but I guess it all escalates up and it all contributes to trying to ease the burden on the NHS. We've also done some charity work. We've started this a good few years ago now, and we've continued that, and something that Darren will continue without doubt in the New Forest, and we operate in our wider partnerships as well. But we've participated in the Wear It Pink campaign. I think I saw Ross in a photo in a pink shirt on his bike, as well as others, and that made us achieve a total of just over £3,000 towards a really positive charity. But also it helps engage the community, helps engage our members and also our colleagues. Everyone wants to get behind that, which is really positive. And then the other element there was our Christmas donation, Again, more photos of our councillors in that one as well. Some lovely Christmas jumpers, which is great to see. And through donations from our customers, we've run sort of a donation bank across all the 5 sites. We managed to donate over 500 Christmas presents to Southampton Children's Hospital, which I think was really well received and again, really positive that we can contribute and deliver those gifts on behalf of our colleagues and our members. On to some of the financials, there is still a gap, but that gap is closing for any of you that would have recalled the financials historically. We're talking fairly big numbers, but I think the important point to note on here is the expenditure, which is almost exclusively down to utilities in the main, and then the balance being down to staff costs, and that's due to sort of inflation wage increases, national minimum wage increases, and as I say, the utility crisis that we've sort of been through, but equally the utility prices are still significantly higher than where we were when we tendered for the contract. So it gives you a bit of a flavour of where we are. Darren's challenge, our challenge as a business, is to close that 150,000 gap back down to bid. I'm confident we're going to get there, and we're certainly on the right path. And as I say, that was a lot larger at one point. What you can see on that slide is sort of a breakdown between sites. I think people are sometimes quite interested in how each site is more profitable than others, and that's essentially due to the makeup of a particular site, what it has to offer, how much staff is required to operate it, how much investment's been in utility savings, and the overall package. But you've got the numbers there, so you can look at those. Going forward into the current year, we've got some clear targets, increasing participation by 5%. We want to continue to reduce our energy usage, because that's the right thing to do for the environment, but also it's a really positive impact on our costs, which is great. Got a target of fitness members of 8,700, which is, we've never had that high in the whole of the time that facilities have been operating in New Forest before us as well, but that's the challenge, and likewise for the target that we've set for 5% increase in learn to swim. I think it's really important that we continue our community and partnership initiatives through Health for Communities increasing in funding, increasing participation, and working ultimately with the council and the council partners to deliver on those. There's clearly some work to do on major decarbonisation, and some work we're working with Pav and Sam and the team to make sure we're delivering on those. And finally, it's for us to get our sort of management team nice and stable now to lead us into the current year and beyond. Just wanted to finish on a video, if I can. This is a video that we've sort of pulled together from all of our partnerships, so it's not New Forest specific, but for us it really sums up kind of what Freedom Leisure are about. So, Pav, if you could.
My name is Valerie Stewart.
Brian Perry. Robert Sitter. Glenn Miller.
I'm 91 years old, and the reason I come to class is to try and keep me as flexible as possible, and it's great, and I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Over 10 years now, after a triple heart bypass. I've never exercised before that. I tried the class after the cardio rehab. It's a very good class, good mix of cardio, workout and stretch.
I had a cardiac arrest September the year before last. I've been coming here about 18 months. I find this really good, very helpful, Sarah's brilliant, and it's made me actually do more exercises at home, and I feel a lot better for doing it.
And it was my doctor that recommended me to come to this class. I've been doing it for about 4 or 5 years and enjoy it. It does a lot of good for me.
Thank you very much, and it's great to see that's actually some of our residents from New Forest there feeding back on the service. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Particularly pleased to see the collaboration with New Milton Youth Trust, as they're dear to my heart, so good for that. It all looks very positive, especially Applemore and the Ringwood centres, but there seems to be more issues with Lymington, New Milton and Totton. What actions are you targeting for these locations?
Sorry, put my speaker on. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's certainly from the financial perspective, and there lies some challenge there. I think from our perspective, there's work that we need to do, but we do tend to see it as an overall, and the partnership as an overall is what's more important rather than getting every site to a surplus. We would have known at bid stage that some sites won't get to a surplus, and that's reflected and offset by the other sites, and then linked to management fees and so on. So we're not expecting to get all of those to that position. That was never our target. It's important that we continue to deliver on the services, because overall it's that fundamentally the wider service across the whole of the New Forest that it's important how we deliver it. Having said that, there is some plans, obviously, with the gym refurb that that's happened over the last 12 months. That's going to start to have a really positive impact. We've got some plans with Learn to Swim to make sure we keep driving the Learn to Swim programme. And actually, corporately, we've introduced a few new colleagues into the team. One specific role that's going to be focusing on junior activities. So that will start to feed in some more usage, occupancy, and therefore income into the facilities as well.
Neil.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I was pleased to see the new Youth Trust as well, because last night we had them in at Town Council giving them a grant for funding to help them out, so that was really good to see. In the report, it talks about capital investment for last year, but there's nothing about your plans for the next 12 months in the objectives. Got any ideas, plans?
Yeah, sure. I think it's important we're really honest, and fundamentally a lot of our investment would have been front-ended, because we've obviously got length of contract we needed to pay back within that time. So the majority of large capital investment would have happened already. There's still one more improvement we need to make in terms of Ringwood Fitness Facility, and we're working on that for this current year. Without question, we've also got PSDS funding through the government scheme, so the decarbonisation. Now that's something that will be a joint project with ourselves and the council officers, and that's probably the largest investment and capital project's going to be happening over the next sort of 12-month period. But that will have a fairly significant impact. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, Tom. 1.8 million. 1.8 million of investment across the facilities, and the impact of that on CO2, kilowatt usage, and therefore the financials will go a significant way, hopefully, to improving the overall position.
Any other questions from Hilary?
Councillor Hilary Brand, Lyndhurst and Minstead. I just wondered if there was anything that you were able to do in terms of staff costs, and whether you'd looked at anything around
Hilary,
that.
we can hear you. Need to be speaking to the mic,
whether
not
you'd
turning
looked
round.
at anything around that. I know the company that I work for have made changes to how much money we put in our pension if we want to, because it saves them national insurance costs and it saves us national insurance costs. So it saved them a considerable amount of money across the year. Have you looked at anything like that?
We haven't looked at pensions. The pension scheme that we offer, there's two schemes that we offer. One's local government pension scheme for the staff that GP'd across. Ross was one of those GP transfers at the time. Obviously there's not anything we can do on that scheme. We do offer an amber scheme, which is a contribution from employee and employee. We haven't considered changing that because we're working to the minimum guidance set by the government for that pension scheme, so I don't think there's any flexibility. However, there's lots that we can do, and that doesn't always need to be about reducing colleagues. Actually, what we've looked at is multi-skilling, so people can work across different departments. And I think where we've struggled with recruitment as an industry because of the wage, it's actually making sure we're keeping services open as long as possible. And by multi-skilling, we can do that. So a good example is at Applemore, where we've got the reception cafe hub. People can work behind that, and they can work between the cafe and the reception area to make sure we can always offer a coffee no matter what time you come in, or whatever it might be that you want to get from the cafe side. So lots of multi-skilling, lots of training as well for our team. We need to accept that whilst wage costs have inflated significantly, another, I think it was 10.1% for us last year, alone in a fiscal year. But equally, we also need to acknowledge that we are a lower payer, not in the sector. The sector's pretty much similar, but by comparison, we always say you can go no more in Sainsbury's or wherever it might be. But by giving the staff more skills, and actually the enjoyment you get hopefully from working and serving your communities is the bit we're trying to work on, and that charity focus and the community focus is really important for us.
I have got a slight follow-up, and you might think this is really sort of thing that the only woman here on the council would say. But when you look at those pictures, the aesthetic is really masculine.
Yeah.
I just wonder whether that would put off women or younger people from wanting to join. The pictures just felt like it was a really bodybuilder masculine environment, and whether that could put people off.
I think it's an interesting comment, and we've actually worked quite hard to demasculine, if you like, our facilities. We've taken a lot of lycra out of our images. We're critical. A lot of our images and our supplies come from America, and if you haven't got a six-pack with muscles bulging and you're in lycra, then you're not going to get those photos. We don't use those images. We try and use more images.
I think it's more around the actual, it was very black, very dark, very purple, just the whole feel of it was just like really masculine. I just wonder if for some people that might be you walk in and you automatically get a feeling of, don't like this.
Yeah, possibly. I think the research that we've done with consumers, and actually 51% of our customers are female. So we have got, and actually majority of our staff are female actually by a very small proportion as well. So there's no evidence or feedback of that. Having said that, I'll take that on board, but that's not what we've had up until now. Ross?
Sorry to interrupt, just to add to that, it's a really good point, and maybe the images didn't do it justice. We have acknowledged that in the last few years, and we've taken a lot of our free weights areas, which used to be traditionally dark, colours and so forth, and there's a few have been on site will notice some of our free weights, we're progressing across others, we've actually painted the walls white and softened it down, and we have seen a much more change of usage to a more broader, both female and male. All right, so we have adapted. Okay.
Okay, now move us on. Thank you very much for coming in tonight. My time.
I would like to hand over to Adam Freeman to present my time annual report.
Thank you very much, Pav, and thank you all for being here. I've been the centre manager at Dibden for about 14 months now, so this is pretty much my first full year. I'm just going to go through first, if I go to the next slide, kind of who we are. We're a social enterprise on a mission to improve well-being. I mean, I won't just read off the slide, I'll let you read, that's all most of you here already know. The main goal for us is to create kind of Dibden to be a hub for the community, not just for golfers, for people of all age, all ability that can use a much wider range of facilities. So I know it's very heavy on golf, it's a big golf course, but the use of the clubhouse, the driving range for people that perhaps don't play, to encourage them to come up and play is kind of a massive goal for us. And that's really what we're aiming to do. This is our kind of corporate update. We've had a new chief exec this year, Steve May's come in, and then our corporate plan going in between 23 and 26 just below. And within Dibden, we want to increase our membership 10% up to 600 by March 26, increase our junior golf participation, which is something I'll touch on a little bit later, to 50 members is something that's really key for us. And then obviously deliver a sustainable EBITDA. We're going to jump straight into our participation levels for a comparison for 24-25 to 23-24. Now, you may remember, but the winter in 23-24 was pretty bad. It cost us kind of over 100 days of closure on the golf course. So you're seeing that back end of 23 being really low, and going into 24-25, it took a little bit to get going. We took some definite course damage. It was longer to get open, and then maybe suffered a little bit on reputation. It was a little bit wet. But once we got going, we caught up to last year. And although there was a dip in sort of September, October, November time due to some bad weather, really positive to see sort of the end of the year, start of 25, really kind of pick up. And I'll touch on that, those two reasons as we go through. Well, I'll flick to the next slide. So that was the 9-hole. And this is the 18-hole, really sort of seeing a similar trend. Took a little bit longer to get kind of traction as we were suffering a little bit from poorer weather from the previous winter to get the course kind of ready and up together. But once we're there and once we're through that September, October, November time, again, we really start to see some kind of pick up in numbers, which is really positive because for us, the golf course closing, obviously no good. We can't really serve anyone. And a lot of it goes down to condition as well. Your reputation kind of drops. And once you get that, you're not seeing as many golfers. So to see that pick up towards the end was really positive for us. I believe the next slide is going to go to membership. Membership follows a similar trend to kind of the footfall. Once you get into those winter months, we are seeing some members kind of drop off. A goal for us is to see this kind of over the years really flatten out. I think this year or the year previous, we suffered a little bit from reputation where 23-24, we had a lot of days closed. I think people anticipate kind of a wet winter, a golf course that's going to be closed and maybe not the best condition. And then we see that slight drop off. But sort of the stuff we've done this year, we've invested, is to try and keep that a lot more level, the same as kind of that footfall. We want to see it as much as we can flatten out throughout the year. Obviously, we are at mercy with the weather being outside, but the flatter we can keep that, obviously, the better for us. What I will say is this has been the first year, I think, for the past 3 that's not dropped below 500, which is quite nice to see. I think that kick up towards the end of the year where we see footfall pick up in those last previous slides really helped the membership kind of retention as well. So a really good kind of platform to build from. And another thing, obviously, talking about that community and that participation, maybe not so much for golfers, these are kind of the bits we've done this year. We're hosting a lot more non-golfing events with coming out of COVID, and the clubhouse was the pro shop and it was all very golf related. We've since then opened the pro shop, which I'll come into in a later slide, but it allowed the clubhouse to kind of host a few more events, certainly functions, party nights, quiz nights, things we're finding really popular that we are starting to see a lot of people come to. And then we are also having a lot of open golf events, trying to attract people that perhaps wouldn't come to Dibden, attracting those golfers that now it is a little bit drier towards the end of the year. We may not see due to reputation and stuff like that perhaps wouldn't have come to visit. This year also was the 50th anniversary of Bramshill Hill. So Bramshill Hill is the club within Dibden. So for anyone that's a member with a handicap to play competitions, are generally members of Bramshill Hill. And you may see Dan, I don't know if Pav's in any of those pictures.
No. I was taking them.
Yeah, trying his hand at golf in there, which it was a really fun day. I think overall we saw about 80 people come up, and there were fun activities throughout the day. It was a really good day for the club, and to show off kind of the investments we've made to potentially people that aren't members was a really good opportunity for us. If I go to the next slide. So apologies because I changed the slide last minute, so I've not quite got this format. But again, one I did touch on earlier was junior golf was a huge target for us. If we went back to 2 or 3 years ago, I think we had zero junior members. Some would play, some would use the range, but hard to really kind of know how often, how much they were using it without them being members. So one of our resident pros, Nathan, runs a junior program, and they start on the 9 hole, and he does different tees, so they're different lengths. So we really try and encourage juniors of all ages. I think the youngest one he has is 4, and like some of the holes are like 30 yards, but they all get like a scorecard and a tag to really kind of bring them into the game, get the etiquette, the rules, and really try and engage them. And since then, we now have 49 junior members. A lot of these, again, are that younger age group that are just on the 9 hole. But we're seeing a lot more progression through the ages, through those levels, up to the 18. And it's now allowed us, I think, last year was the first time we've had a junior team that goes together, visits other clubs. And it's really nice to see that side to it. And a lot of those have parents that are also members. So we're trying to encourage that family kind of participation. Here's a couple of photos of Nath's juniors. So he'll post a leaderboard. It's really engaging, 1 online for the parents, 2 for the kids to see. If they pass their level, they get like a tag, and really encouraging for them to kind of keep playing, keep coming back, and use the facilities as well. You see a lot of them practice. And I think of those ones that are now a bit older and use the 18, I think 80% come through the 9-hole groups. And it's really interesting to see those come through, be able to play, and you see them with other adults play in kind of adult competitions, and again, making those teams, which is really nice to see. So now we're going to go into kind of the investments we've made in the past year. I will just touch on all of them, and then we'll go into the slides. So there's an indoor golf studio, Aces, and we'll go into that. And the main one, from a maritime point of view, was the drainage ditch across the 9th and the 10th fairway. And again, we'll go into that in a bit more detail. But outside of that, the course being a little bit wet and losing that kind of condition, and that little bit of reputation was somewhere we really wanted to improve. So we've really kind of invested in, one, the machinery we use on the greens, on the fairways. For instance, 24-25 was the first year we've used a turf iron, which is a machine that goes on the greens to really help, and an Air 2 G2, which again is a machine that goes on the greens and kind of blows air underneath to help, one, the water flow through and the circulation of air for the grass roots. Something we've certainly seen improve, and our MPS score, although I've not got it on this slide, which I apologise, has started to see an improvement. And we've also introduced one extra greenkeeper as well, so having those extra hands has certainly helped. So this is the drainage works. What we see is when it would get really wet, you can see from the slides on the right, the 9th and the 10th fairway are kind of like the lowest point for the golf course. So all this water would drain right through that channel, as you can see, and it would really collect. And even after long periods of rain, it would stop us from opening the course. It would get quite like almost like a pond, and you can't let people play. It would go right across. They couldn't walk through it. Sometimes it would get to like 4 feet deep. And it was really an area that was kind of holding us back from opening earlier. And suddenly all that water would back up. It would stay on the golf course for a long time. And it just kind of had nowhere to flow. So what we've done is we've put in a ditch right across. It should be on the next slide. We've put a ditch right across, and where there's pathways over the top, there's a little kind of concrete tunnel to go through, and it's connected to drainage pipes from one side of the course to the other. So now when water collects in that area, it flows a lot quicker and straight off the golf course. It's really allowed us to, after long periods of rain, open the golf course a little bit quicker to kind of, we lose those days where we might have been shut a day or two longer after heavy rain. And it really allows us to open up, get people back out. Certainly times when there's a large downpour, you're not seeing a collection of water. So as soon as it's dry enough to kind of walk on and safe, we can let people go back out and play. It's also allowed us to find a lot more previous drainage in the fairways, which over the years hasn't been cleared. So we're now finding old drainage pipes that we can clear again, just adding to all of the drainage. And drainage is something we're looking to continue into this year, the following year. Now we've cleared this area, it's other areas that probably stay wet, so there'll be other areas we can find that may have blocked drainage, we can increase drainage, stuff like that. It's really helped us kind of move that forward. And then the other parts are the indoor golf studio aces. So we reopened the shop back in July, the pro shop, which is a separate building. So the golf journey for your customer is much easier now. The golf shop's closer to the first tee, right outside the putting green. And what was left was the old shop. We're not seeing too much in terms of a customer coming in to buy. A lot of golfers now buy their golf clubs online, their golf stuff online. So to have a wasted space in the shop was really not something we wanted. So there's still the reception there, and we still sell golf bits, but essentially the empty space that was there is now turned into a 2-bay indoor studio. It's allowed us to attract a younger demographic, certainly, but a demographic that wouldn't play too much, wouldn't be confident enough to go out and play holes to hold anyone up. And you're seeing golfers that would never really come to Dibden. You see a high percentage of golfers that are members at other clubs that don't have this facility. And it's allowed us to bring in those people. It's allowed us to open the driving range a little bit later on in the evening. And just something that we've seen a really positive feedback from. Technology is kind of the way golf's going. You're seeing a lot more of these pop up, and to kind of get in on that was something that we're really proud of. So now we're going to go into the kind of financials. So membership has dropped down for us. I think that's a little bit of reputation from the previously really wet winter, and we didn't quite get the golf course up together in time for the season. But this year that has been much better. Once we've now got it a little bit drier with the ditch, we're seeing a lot more retention. And obviously following that, with it being a bit wetter and not as good a condition and a little bit of reputation, we see the green fees drop. A really positive though is we are seeing F&B increase, obviously with a few more events in the clubhouse. And I think opening the pro shop has allowed maybe golfers to be a bit more in the pro shop. People come into the clubhouse, book a few more events. If you're coming in to see 50 golfers that are queuing up to tee off, it's not the most inviting for maybe a party or anything like that. So really positive move there. And again, the driving range has seen a big increase. Partly down to the studio maybe being opening later, partly down to seeing a lot more footfall. The studio has to get to the studio, you're going through the shop, you're seeing reception, you're seeing the range, you're seeing the facilities. So partly down to both of those, longer hours, more people coming down, and a really positive side to see to those two bits. Our expenditure, staffing has increased, which was expected, it's still in budget, but with 2 buildings opening now, essentially those lone working hours where we used to maybe have 1 person in the clubhouse has now turned into 2 for each building. Something that we're very conscious of is we're looking at hours and how we can maybe cut the hours in the clubhouse, and when it gets to the winter where after 4 or 5 o'clock it's dark and you're not going to see many golfers coming in, but we're keeping the pro shop open because you are seeing the golfers come to the driving range, and kind of vice versa. When we get to the summer, we're not going to see people tee off 9, 10 o'clock, so we can bring that down a bit, maybe just leave the studio open, but something we're very conscious of. R&M again has increased quite a bit. A large chunk of that was the ditch, and a lot of it is clearing and replacing ditches, machinery needed to really get that golf course improvement back up to where we want it. And again, energy is another one, opening those 2 buildings up, but something we are conscious to look at going forward. This is our EBITDA performance. So obviously our operating loss of 41,000, 24-25, and once we take in our central support costs, it does go up to 205. And kind of again, stuff we want to improve on. I think what we do really well is we are very welcoming. All of the staff are local. Something I pride myself on is that it's a much family-friendly feel when you're coming in. And again, the weaknesses we know, the wetter months, we don't want to be closed for those longer periods. It's really affecting that membership retention, that green fee retention. So the work we continue to do is an effort to kind of make that much better. And that's pretty much it. Thank you very much.
Can I just ask,
sure.
It's all good news, except of course, sorry.
All good news, but of course we saw the deficit being
Yes.
there. What are your ambitions? You see that coming. I see you're looking for more members. And your F&B is going well. Have you got a driving force for getting more members?
Yeah, absolutely. Go on, do you want to take it?
Apologies. So something from our part is to make sure that, obviously, we talk about wanting golf 365 days of the year. That's the key aspiration. But we know that being an outdoor sport is not something that maybe that's in terms. It's not the feasibility is not there so much. But from our perspective, it's about how we kind of increase dwell time. We make sure that our auxiliary spend is where it needs to be. So for us, it's about diversifying our product. Adam spoke quite clearly about ACEs and the introduction of the indoor simulator. So from our part, it's about adding more benefit to our members. So if we can have our challenge of diversifying the product around our indoor simulators, we can hopefully in future look at an investment part where we add maybe top tracer to our driving range. We look at kind of benefiting our member by putting credit levy onto their card. There's different ways in which we can kind of retain the member, even though our golf course or our primary product isn't maybe performing as well as we would like it to within those winter months. So for me, it's about adding benefit to our members and showcasing what we do at our golf centre rather than it being our golf course more than anything else.
You said you had 600 members, or what you want to get. How many have you got now?
Currently, right now we have 525.
I see. Okay. So.
And to speak openly, I think the golden number is probably 700. But actually, if you look at how popular YouTube golf has been and what effect that's had on the nomadic golfer, nomadic golfer is somebody that plays maybe a different course every week. I think that memberships may be a thing of the past. And for us, as in employers, we need to look at kind of reacting to the target market. So for us, looking at our market, looking at our competitors, and kind of reviewing how we react to that market is something we certainly need to do as we kind of review our market. As we review our membership base.
Sorry, just one asking.
drainage, is that the end of the drainage, or have you got other projects on it?
There is other projects as well, not quite as big as that one just yet, but a lot of it is exploration, finding previous ditches that are there, previous drainage pipes that are there underground. We have a couple of open ditches as well that require clearing, and so we can kind of connect all of them together. It's one of them where now this is clear and we kind of get rid of the water there. There's other areas that then maybe sit with a little bit too wet, so then it's those areas. Not quite as big, large scale, but absolutely yes.
I think to speak plainly, to interrupt, if anybody knows Dibden Golf Centre, it's 6 metres below sea level on blue clay. So I think that, the challenge has always been there, but for us, it's about how we find those original drainage, and we've got some great drainage plans from the local authority, so we thank you for that. And also how we look at areas in which we can use soakaways to make sure that we collect those waters, because essentially what we'd like to do is have sustainable water bases ourselves anyway, looking at boreholes and things like that as we move into the future, because as we know, mains water and the restrictions on those and then the costs that we see certainly will help moving forward.
Richard?
Yes, I'm Richard Frampton. Bit of a technical one, because I do a lot of drainage on my farm and we're on clay. Do you do a lot of treatment on your fairways, as well as you've got to get your ditches in, yes, you've got to get your transverse drains in to get them. Do you do things like regular verti draining as well, and putting something like a shockwave machine through, so that you're always keeping those channels open to get the water down underneath the soil instead of it sitting on the top?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And to be brutally honest, we've used your industry as a bit of guidance to ascertain how we can help fracture the ground, because for us, the key component is making sure, because of the level of compaction that we've got in the clay, it's ensuring that we create channels for that water to flow through. So we've got a mole plough, and we've used that quite historically recently. We've got a sour roller, which we've been using. And the shockwave is something that one of our key support partners has told us about.
If you want to borrow one, I've got one.
I'll get in contact after. Thank you very much.
Richard, only you could ask one of a question like that, and then we didn't understand a word of the answer anyway. Hilary's next, and then Patrick.
Hello. I just wondered what your return on investment for the ASA was. What was the payback period? And are you on track?
Certainly on track. So it cost us 60,000 to put in all in total, with machinery, build material costs. Essentially, we saved a little bit of money because we didn't bring in a company that fitted it out. We built the frame, put it all in, and then fitted out the screens and the mats as we were. On track to kind of gain that back probably within the next 3 to 5 years, I'd say.
Another question, how many staff do you have?
In total across site? We have... Yeah, go on.
25.
25.
That's built up of an FTE, so our full-time members of staff and our flexibles, if you want to call it that.
That cost you, how much was it a year? It was a lot, wasn't it?
Yeah, are you referring to the staffing, or are you referring to the support service part?
The $500,000?
Yeah, so essentially that's made up of...
600,000 for 25 staff?
So we've got 6.5 greenkeepers. Obviously we've got flexible staff to support on function costs. So we're running functions. Obviously we'd love to do that kind of cost surplus, but you're never going to get that. So from our part, what we'd like to do is try and keep that as fixed as possible. The summer, that will inflate hugely, because obviously that's when we're most profitable in that sense, so from April to September. And then as we move into the winter, we go back to kind of our skeleton workforce in that sense. But yes, we'll probably have to do a little bit of a maths piece on that to see what our percentage to turnover was on that. I think it's run about 37%, something like that. But it does look a bit inflated on that slide.
Just going back to the return on investment, previous companies I've worked for that make a lot of money always aim for a 2.5-year return on investment. Just might help.
Thank you.
Patrick, last question, and then we'll let you go.
Yeah, Patrick Mbala. I'm just going to check what catering facilities, and also you mentioned about junior program. How do you attract families, like, you know, young families, just to come and have fun and have a good something to eat, a lunch for a Sunday meal or something? If you can explain a bit more, please.
So did you want to know what catering facilities there are? So we've got a full-purpose kitchen that delivers anything from I don't know, a 200 wedding right through to a conference not too dissimilar from this in some respects. So we can cater quite broadly in that sense. And the family element is something that, as part of our 5-year business plan, we need to improve on. And the reason for that is because we've kind of rested on a word of mouth element. So from us, it's about engaging in junior activities, reaching out to the local area. We've used Hive and Waterside Facebook page really, really well, and they've got a really good following in the past. And again, for our piece of work, moving forward with an element of in-reach and outreach, because we do a lot of great work in-house, but it's how we get out into our wider communities and use the local authority as a platform to do so as well. So as part of our marketing plan moving into 25-26, it's certainly something to link in with our wider support service to look at how we delve into those local communities and get the best out of those things as well.
Yeah, definitely, there's lots of opportunities.
I'm going to stop it there, Sean. I will let you in later, but I'm conscious of time. So thank you to both organisations for coming in. Please feel free to go, but if you wish to stay with us for the rest of the evening and enjoy the happy rhetoric, please feel free to do so. Okay, we all enjoy a good spreadsheet, so the next one on is SAC.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. Sorry, we're just arranging to close the door, make sure they get to where they need to get to. Okay, so this is the report for the key performance indicators for Q1. Measure IDs 1 through 15 are for consideration this evening at panel. We have data for 23 KPIs in total, 7 marked for consideration this evening. Next slide, please. The households and emergency accommodation, this was flagged as red this quarter. I'd say this measure is rather susceptible to small changes. Anything like 5 above the target or above the threshold will take us into the red zone. There is mitigation offered in the narrative, and my colleagues at the front will be providing a separate homelessness update later on. So I won't steal their thunder, but they'll be able to talk through the work the teams do to place families while also sustaining existing tenancies. The number of families with children under 16, that remains green, and since publishing the dashboard, we have had numbers for PSPOs come in at 118. Next slide, please. So the Q1 dashboard will be going to all 3 panels. Any comments, questions, I'm happy to take, and I will be collating those for Cabinet inclusion. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Could you give us a latest update on the CCTV rollout, please?
So at the time of publishing, we didn't have the numbers, but my colleague Brian here next to me, so he'll be able to answer that.
This is covered later on, but in terms of in the last quarter, Q1, we've done another additional 14 cameras across the network. So we are in the last, for next month, we've done the electrification of Tesco's in Brockenhurst, Totton, locations in Totton, Today we met with Linders Parish Council just to agree locations. So we are hoping to finish the expansion of the programme certainly by the end of October. So we're kind of at this point of, as for everyone we add within the digital network, some of the issues we're seeing is that with the existing infrastructure within the analogue network, is that infrastructure, whilst BT are saying they're maintaining it, it's becoming old, it's requiring a little bit more service. So my guys who are going forward with the installation are also having to come back and deal with the old infrastructure. So it's a little bit of a balance to move this on. It's also a balance as well about making sure that the more digitalised cameras that we add to the network, that we do it in such a way that the bandwidth of the incoming line can maintain that as well. So, but certainly by the end of October, we're hoping to complete the additional, if you like, the expansion of the network, and then following that, we will then move into the next phase, which is replacing the old analogue network and removing all of that.
In the old days, history, there was somebody else, there was an area that wouldn't sign up. Are we all signed up now?
In terms of contributions?
Yeah.
Correct, yes. Every town and parish is contributing towards the cameras, the service.
Thank you. And also, I've looked at the KPIs and I can see that the bed and breakfast for children is on target or under target, but there's still 6 families recorded, and I wondered, is there any way of knowing how long they will be in that situation?
We can find that out, couldn't we, Chris? But yeah, I think the fact that that remains green, it tells us a little bit about how placements are prioritised. Obviously, those with families would have a high priority, but we can do some more digging around the numbers if you like.
Okay, thank you, Zach. That's, it's all good news, really, in some respects, isn't it? Thank you. Okay, the next item, just to give you some background. I attended with Councillor Davis one of our community days at the Nederman Centre, and I bumped into Melvin on that day, and he was wearing a rather interesting T-shirt, which provoked a conversation. Because it talked about stigmatisation, and talking to him, and it's something he wants to champion, I think, and I think it's something we need to, as councillors and members, actually have an awareness of. So, stigmatisation in social housing, probably some of us have all been guilty of over the years, but unconsciously, I hope. So it's this is a sort of an education exercise for us. Melvin, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and my apologies. I'm going to sort of contain this to be as short as possible. I'm going to read my notes rather than ad-lib, because then I'd be here for hours. So, first slide is, I'm Melvin. I'm Melvin Utley, an involved tenant by New Forest District Council. This is a short presentation that'll look at the stigma of social housing, its effect on tenants, and how together we can bring about change. Next slide, please. What is social housing stigma? Put simply, it's the negative judging of social housing tenants. Stigma can impact on all aspects of a tenant's life, including employment and healthcare. Wording, policies and actions of organisations and institutions stigmatise. News outlets and TV dramas that portray tenants, their homes and communities in a negative way, reinforce false perceptions and stereotypical views, promoting societal disadvantage and discrimination. Government policies have changed how social housing is seen by society, and it now appears to only be available to the poorest or most vulnerable. Now, stigma is seen when landlords take decisions with a "we know what is best" attitude. Repairs and maintenance systems that presume that tenants are always at home, not at work, missed appointments, delays or poor standards of repairs and maintenance and poor communication. We have contact centre staff and tradesmen that speak to tenants in a condescending manner or with a lack of respect when carrying out works in homes. Failures in considering or acknowledging tenants' needs, feelings or even basic rights, and when communicating with tenants using words that are technically correct but socially demeaning. Landlords who describe tenants as customers fail to understand that as customers they have choice. We are consumers, stakeholders, residents and tenants. Attitudes and behaviours towards tenants are often a catalyst for complaint. All are stigmatising. Next slide, please. The Grenfell Tower tragedy. 72 lives lost because of the tragic failings of a social housing landlord, local authority, contractors and building safety organisations. This underpins the need for change. The inquiry found that relations between the landlord and many of the residents of Grenfell Tower were increasingly characterised by distrust, dislike, personal antagonism and anger. Some, perhaps many occupants of the tower regarded the landlord as an uncaring and bullying overlord that belittled and marginalised them, regarding them as a nuisance or worse, and failing to take their concerns seriously. As a landlord, it lost sight of the fact that the residents were people who depended on it for a safe and decent home and the privacy and dignity that a home should provide. And that is why it is important to learn the lessons of Grenfell. Next slide, please. Social and self-elevation are societal-based stigma. A home does not define a person. It doesn't lessen their abilities or intellect. Tenants are people. Some will become successful in life. Others may fail. Coming from a privileged background is not a guarantee of success in life, and it is a person who succeeds because of who they are, and not because where they live or the type of home they were brought up in. We see societal change when those who buy properties through rent to buy suddenly become socially elevated, the same people living in the same house. And today I've just been made aware of an email received by an officer. And tenants can also stigmatise. And the last paragraph says, unlike a lot of your clients, I pay full rent and council tax. It appears to me if you claim benefits, you get a better service from NFDC. And that's a tenant stigmatising other tenants. The stigma of social housing is intertwined with other stigmas such as poverty and disability. It wraps itself around communities like a tattoo. Once applied, it is there for a lifetime. And whilst it can be covered up, its appearance changed. It's hard to completely remove. The challenges faced by tenants are at times the same as homeowners. For example, waiting for a gas engineer or plumber is something we all have to do and will continue to have to do. The difference is in the mindset and the attitudes in that service delivery. Changing the mindset of those who work and deliver services in the social housing sector starts with destroying the myths. Together, we have to change the mindset, the attitudes, because your tenants are telling you clearly that missed appointments, lack of communication, poor standards of workmanship and cheap repairs are still prominent in complaints. Next slide, please. It's pleasing to see that progress is being made, and I'd like to thank the officers who engaged with me recently, taking on board the need for a shift in the terminology used. I actually took those words from them. You'll see it on the policy later. The fact that I'm making this presentation to members of this scrutiny panel is proof that this council has a progressive attitude toward tenant engagement and it's willing to hear the tenant voice. The foundation is here to build on. However, my own recent experience reflects that of many tenants. There is a need for change within the repairs and maintenance department and contractors. Stigma is embedded in the day-to-day experience of tenants. A shift in the mindsets and systems is needed in order to fully deliver trust, respect and empathy. Now, alongside those in urgent need, young professionals, local government employees, teachers, nurses, police officers are struggling to become homeowners in areas of high house prices such as ours. Social housing provision has had to change to meet this growing issue. However, in order to build balanced communities for the future, breaking down societal discrimination and destroying myths, these forms of housing, affordable rent, intermediate and shared ownership, should be in and amongst those who are housed through urgent need. The standards of build for new social housing have to be at least on par with the same property type in the private sector. On a mixed development, it should not be possible to see a difference between social and privately owned properties. We have to work together to stop social housing stigma. Working together in partnership. Thank you very much.
Melvin, thank you for that. I think there were some interesting phrases there that you put up under the myths, etc. On that page there, and it's. I think the language there is challenging for all of us not to repeat and actually remember. So I think it's timely that you do it. Thank you for challenging us today. I think it's really important that we move forward. Some of this was highlighted by Grenfell, of course, which is still in the national memory and rightly remain there for a number of years. But do you think things are actually improving in terms of the levels of stigma, or has nothing changed?
Well, I'd like to think that that has been changed. I think I've recently, over the weekend, I looked at another nearby local authority, and in 2017 they undertook a big project for stopping social stigma, and then today I've been speaking to tenants in that area and nothing's changed with them because it's not been on the agenda enough. So I think it's that changing the mindset and keeping that at the forefront, and that will bring, if we engage with tenants in a positive way, be innovative, then we will see a drop in complaints is a big benefit. So.
Thank you again. As I say, you were kind to us by saying that we are responding and by actually allowing you to speak today. But there was the sort of the underlying issues that I think come out whenever you raise a subject like this. So probably we will need to revisit this, I think, in the future, just to make sure we are improving. Members, any other questions? Richard.
I was a little bit concerned that there is obviously a level still of stigma in this council, as you say, maybe down at contractor level. Is it subcontractors that come in, do you think, or is there need for education amongst our own contracting staff?
I find contractors who also service the private sector, there's no stigma at all, because they work in both, they see no difference. I do find it's more in communication side of things, the words used, not on policy documents, we've addressed that to a certain extent, but certainly the words in communication, I think it's more, from my personal experience, sitting in waiting all day for an appointment that nobody turns up and no communication, and then they say, well, we can't do anything about that. You know, well, hang on. And then, oh, we'll get back to you, and nobody gets back to you. The reason I was here was because, based on complaint, and I decided that I'd had to do something about that. And yes, it is within the local authority, but I think it's within every local authority, every housing service provider, and it's a national and societal thing. It's not something that we're any different, but we can reduce it and we can stop it. So basically, sort of communication is the key. What I can get, and keeping yourselves informed, and treating you as if you'd purchased a telly from Curry's or something and it's coming at 2 o'clock and that's when you would expect it, and if it's not, you need to be told. Yeah, just treating me the same as you would a private household. That's exactly it.
Thank you.
John.
Actually, it's interesting. My wife was from a social housing, if you like, a council house, and her parents before were in prefabs. The prefab was definitely where people thought that was, but they were all military people, and I must be honest, their places were immaculate. And I too feel being a councillor might help, because I find I treat people as they treat me, and I think that's the big thing in life. You've got to have a respect for everybody. And if people don't respect me, I don't respect them. That's how I get through life. So I feel that it's two-way, isn't it, all these things. But you're saying often there is an area can have a feeling, people can say, like a large estate. People, I know when I lived further along the coast, a large estate was considered a trouble because there was a reputation sometimes. But I think, therefore, as I say, it's a good thing you're coming forward to say that. It's almost like it could be people thinking that we think worse of them than we do. That's what I'm saying. I have great respect for anybody.
One of the points that I made, Chair, was when we met, was that developers never call their developments estates. That says it all.
I think it does, and it is the terminology and the phrases that perhaps are in or have been in everyday use that we've got to re-educate ourselves on and be more aware of. So I think this is an interesting subject, because we need to be very careful actually how we're asking our questions as well, don't we? Hilary.
I just wondered, I don't know if I missed it, but is this being rolled out across the NFDC? Yeah.
Richard Knott, Strategic Director, Housing and Communities. So, yeah, we very much see this as a launch tonight, and we very much want to roll it out and to have impact. So, and that's to wider members as well, cabinet and staff as well. So, this is something that we're definitely want to work with Melvin and the tenants on to get behind, most definitely.
I have experienced this, Melvin, with residents calling me recently with a lady that was having work done in her council property, and they hadn't turned up 3 times, and she had rung and said, I can't keep taking the time off work. Well, of course you can't. None of us can keep doing that. But nobody was listening or understanding her when she said, I can't. Can you come after 5? Or can you do something else? So, yeah, it's definitely, I think, something that needs to be sorted.
Just as a quick one on that, if it was for, say, gas service or electrical safety checks, I know lots of local authorities who serve injunctions on tenants because they can't gain access on, and there's a bit of injustice there.
And if it was a private company, you'd get compensation.
Sean.
My question in some ways is probably to Richard. If we're developing this, what are we going to be having as a KPI? How are we going to put a measurement on this?
Yeah, well, there'll be a number of measures. I don't think there'll be one specific one, but if you're obviously aware of the tenant satisfaction measures, so they cover a number of perception measures about what tenants think of us. There's opportunities for them to put comments into that, so we obviously use that data. We've got complaints data where we'll get feedback on any dissatisfaction of interactions with tenants. We obviously get service information as well, and Sophie will be fully aware of data on missed appointments or anything like that, repairs not done right first time. So there'll be a suite of indicators that indicate to us how well we're working in this area, as well as the tenant engagement work, which goes out to the homes, to the areas where our tenants live. We've got the community days that we've now got in play. I think there was a coffee morning as well that we're doing. So that's where we openly ask tenants their views, how their experiences are, and we can get that feedback. So we're not wanting to put one necessarily specific indicator, but we want to make sure we're gathering a number of views from different places and all across the tenant body.
That's reassuring, because I knew all that work went on. I was worried that we were going to come up with another measure that, but as you say, we've got a suite of measures in place already.
I'd like to think that it goes right the way through every KPI that we do, and I'm sure Zach he's nodding his head at the back of the room there that this will be part of every KPI we do. But we took on a challenge when we said we'd have a tenant member and co-opted him on, and it's important that we listen to our tenants, and seeing him standing there that day with that T-shirt on actually sent a really powerful message. And I think it sent a powerful message to us today, and probably we've got food for thought and reflection from now on, and the ongoing issues of how we rise to those challenges. So on a positive note, we are listening, and we've got to work the way forward, and that's everybody, that's members, irrespective of where our politics lie, and the officers at all levels, because it goes across every department of the council about how we look at one of the major parts of the service we deliver, and that's housing. So I think it's an interesting challenge we set ourselves today, and the portfolio holder is delighted that we'll be meeting this challenge.
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that. Do you have any other issues you want to bring tonight?
Sorry, I was just reading.
Just say, Chair, that we have to work together, and we've got a good relationship. I've got a good relationship with tenant engagement team. We share experiences. We're going forward. We're looking. We're going to do things nationally. We'll look to the best results from of the housing providers. We'll look at good examples. We'll look at the failures, and we'll do it together. And I think we just have to just bear things in mind. And if we can get one of the things, just really quickly, one of the things that came to mind the other day was that we often start with things from the top down with policy, and we look at things from the top down. And I think one of the things we must start doing is looking from the tenant up, not from the government requirement. And there's where the terminology changes. So where you have a government requirement, government requires you to do this. The government requires you to have electrical safety checks, but it's actually for the tenant's benefit. So we reverse that. The tenant benefit has to come first to satisfy the regulation, not. So we reverse it.
I think that's important. I mean, the next item is social housing regulation, and obviously we've got to meet a certain standard, but we can actually do better, can't we? Yeah, we can go beyond what that says, because and I think that's everybody's aim here in this room. So we will move on to that now. Thank you, Melvin. So where am I on my thing? Paul, that's you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Paul Thomas, Assistant Director of Housing. So this report, it's actually the fourth report in the series. So early on in the year, there was an overview of the whole social regulation. And this is report number 4, but it's actually the number 3 in terms of the community standard, which is the neighbourhood and community standard. So thanks to Melvin, we probably just we got into talking about excellence, I think, and culture. Just the gap analysis here, and I think I've made the point quite a few times, it's not just the regulator standards, they're actually standards of excellence as well that we're measuring ourselves against on the gap analysis. So when I say we have a number of gaps, some of them will be consumer standards as per the regulator, some of them will be standards of excellence from different agencies, Housing Quality Network, and our own evaluation of good practice, other inspection reports and inspection results from other councils and social landlords. So we're really looking at some of those just to assure Melvin and others that we are going beyond where we can. We're looking for the C1, which is compliance with the standards, but after that we're also moving towards excellence as defined by NFDC and its residents. So something we're looking forward to moving on to, and I'm certainly looking to moving on to. But back to this report, the obvious thing, we must meet the Social Regulation Act and the standards. I've made the point in the report that unlike housing associations, councils have lots of responsibilities. We're not a single focus as a council. So things like the neighbourhood and community standards is far harder for a council to meet than, say, a housing provider engaging in stakeholders and everything else. I say that, I have worked for housing associations, but councils have a wider remit about community safety and helping join all this thing up for other social landlords. So I make the point there, and it's evidenced by the social landlords who failed this standard have all been councils to date. So that gives you an indication of this is a tough one. The good news is, I think, that we've got excellent feedback from all our partners, that NFDC is kind of a leading light in the region and certainly takes on a lot of work that some may say is the remit and role of adult social care, children's services, and our recent homelessness strategy review indicates that our partners certainly hold us in that esteem and light and rely on a social housing provider, and particularly NFDC, as a pivotal role in delivering these services, holistic services, not just landlord services. And that's an important part of the regulator standards and also important part of achieving excellence and a more holistic service outside of just landlord services for our tenants. Happy to move on to the next slide. So the implications in the report I've mentioned about the gap analysis, and if we remember that the regulator actually wants us to do this, it's not something we do for fun. I think the regulator would expect us to have done a gap analysis and know ourselves and know our tenants and know our properties, not necessarily in that order, but the key thing, and I think Melvin has really been talking about it, is where we're trying to get the excellence. It's all about tailoring services and having a better culture. So not one size fits all, all those sound bites that you hear, they're all true. And that's probably the biggest challenge for landlords in actually getting that personalised service that makes tenants feel valued, as well as delivering good services. It's that extra piece. So we've got assurance on this from our corporate peer review. I've mentioned the homelessness strategy work. And just to add to this and putting our money where our mouth is, if you like, we have commissioned a mock inspection from an organisation that will give us the same look as the social housing regulator, following the same format. So we should get some assurance in December or in about January exactly where we are and the validity of all these reports that we're putting forward over the year. We think, you know, we're in a good place generally, but there's a lot more work to do around getting to know our tenants and making decisions based on that kind of information, and obviously about personalising those experiences that Melvin's talked about tonight across all parts of housing, but of course all parts of the council as well, because tenants don't just get services from the housing department or the landlord service. So I think that's the important bit. You know, we're all in it together, and this council's, you know, I think probably one of the best in the region in delivering a housing service, but it still has some way to go. So I'll finish there, unless there's any questions on the report.
Okay, thank you for that, Paul. I think when you were talking about whose responsibility is, you know, social care, etc., any agency that has to deal with people has to take a holistic approach to it. And some welfare issues will become our issues simply because we're the first line of contact. Simple as that, or as difficult as that. Members. Neil.
Thanks. Yeah, hope I can read my notes while I was reading through the report the other day. There's a bit in paragraphs 27, 28 about tenant data on diverse needs, and I'm wondering how you collect that sort of data. You've got any information?
Do you want to?
Yeah, I'm happy to pick that up. David Brown, Tenant Engagement Manager. So we did a project last year, 12-month project, to ask all of our tenants across our tenant population to provide that data if they're willing to do so, using an external company to do that on our behalf because it was a large piece of work. 27% of our tenants came back and have given us that data, and that data is now held on our system. So that's our starter for 10. What we're now trying to do is to further bolster that data by using our frontline services who are speaking with tenants on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and asking them again if they're willing to do so to provide that information, and trying to be a bit more human on this occasion and saying this is why we need that data, you know, to shape our services to help that. We did that with the survey that we did last year, but again we went out digitally in email and text message and in paper. It wasn't a human response at that point, so it's like utilising our services such as our gas and electric teams who, you know, are going to go into a lot of our customers and tenants' homes and say, you know, have your gas check, and by the way, is there anything we need to be aware of? So that's another 12-month programme with regular updates to our senior managers to let them know how that project's going.
Thanks for that. You actually answered the other bit I was going to ask, which is what you actually do with the data. So thanks for that. There was another little thing popped up. Do we have the correct governance in place for the service around all the things we do?
Say governance. Yeah, I think we have an exceptional amount of governance. I think you've seen some of it tonight, the KPI indicators. We have the tenant satisfaction measures, which are reported to the regulator and have to be collected in a certain way, so we can't make them up. It's currently at 81% tenant satisfaction overall, which is upper quartile and one of the best in the country. So, you know, through all the systems, all the cabinets, all the scrutiny panels, the portfolio holder, this information's in the public domain. So, yeah, there's a tremendous amount of scrutiny, data checking, and service improvement plans going on at the moment.
How do you actually communicate? Is it through monthly meetings or through the... How's the usual way to talk to tenants? Is
it? Any way that works. I mean, yes. We're out on the estates. I was out on Friday. Day-to-day contact. I think what we really need, and you're probably seeing this in transformation, is that single view of a tenant and that single view of a customer. You know, we are sort of a little bit behind on the IT, which I'm sure members are aware. So once that transformation comes in, then that will enable us to work better. But in the meantime, it really is day-to-day, face-to-face, visit by visit. And obviously people like Melvin and others, the TIG group, the tenant engagement group, you know, it's perpetual, constant.
Yes.
It's everyday business, to be honest. And what we need to do with that everyday business, though, is capture it more and make decisions based on, you know, these individual decisions that we need to make as managers to make sure that people get a bespoke service. And I think that's really the bit that we need to do more of.
You have a sort of a hub system where you have the police and maybe the NHS and any social services, you're all there in one area one day. Do you have that type of meeting?
Have those as well. I mean, Brian probably has more of those than most of us in the community safety role, but certainly we've got ASB. You know, this partnership working is day by day, and look across all the service managers, look across all the teams, and in different forms and in different spheres, they'll all be working, you know, in that collective type partnership, collective type stakeholders. Our ASB teams aren't going too far without the courts, without the police, without mental health services, and so on and so forth.
So, may I say, Melvin, in that case, you'd say it's easy to get hold of somebody if you want to get hold of them. People are there, you could communicate quite easily with every service that's available to you.
I think the hub works, but it's the response at times that we've got to build on and make sure that we're looking at capturing data. Yeah, we're looking at, it's important to know who your tenants are, and that's a difficult thing because getting that knowledge, you can only capture what knowledge people give to you, and I think we now need to look at getting the sources of every point of contact that an officer has, no matter if they're just trades or whatever. Every point of contact now has got to be a conduit for information back to every aspect of it, because, you know, are you at property within poverty and all that? Is it a property with distress? What are the implications? Information gathering is within GDPR has got to be important. So I think that's ongoing as far as I can see, and communicating back to officers isn't difficult for me.
I mentioned the community days where I met Melvin earlier on, that I think it's an opportunity for us as members to actually engage with tenants as well. And I know a number of us went to the one in New Milton. I think you've got others planned. So just an advert for the community days, that it's actually, if you can get there and take part, it is actually a worthwhile exercise for us as members. You know, listening to the tenants is good, but also that day we had the local police who were able to answer questions that they have the handle on, so to speak. We had Brian's team there doing the cycle marking, and more of that later. And we had other agencies of fire were there as well, weren't they? So you've got a number of the services there at these community days, and they are well worth us being present as well. I won't mention the ice cream tickets that were available on this hot summer's day, but that was the added bonus. But that was basically for the tenants, not the councillors, of course. But all of that is a positive way. Eating an ice cream with a tenant is probably a good way of communicating.
Just to say that the ice cream van was a very good thing to have a look at the clean air policy, because it's absolutely stunk.
Hilary.
Thank you. I just wondered how had the take-on process of new tenants changed to ensure that you collect all the data that you need to move forward with in the future?
Sorry, in terms of the phase 2 and how we've seen take up since then?
Well, so you're wanting to collect more data about your tenants, and I just wondered, I'm assuming that when you have new tenants taking on a property, you've got a process it goes through, so how has that process changed to reflect the need to take more data, more information?
Correct, and I am really pleased to say that since April 2023 we've been collecting all the data that's required to collect from new tenants, so that data wasn't missing. What we were missing is historical data from tenants that have been tenants for 5, 10, 15 years, but every new tenant that comes through as a new tenant, we're collecting all of the data and asking those specific questions. Obviously, what we have got to do is we have then got a duty to make sure that stays relevant and correct, both from a GDPR and from a best practice point of view. So again, we're not discriminating when our hub team are taking calls. We're checking the date that the data was last updated.
Okay, I'm going to move us to the recommendation now because I am conscious of time as well, but we have got fairly chunky subjects tonight. It's on the screens in front of you that the Housing and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Panel consider the Housing Department's compliance against meeting the neighbourhood and community standard as part of the preparedness for inspection and make any further recommendations to the portfolio holder for housing and homelessness. Are we all happy with that recommendation? And thank you for the debate tonight on this subject. Next subject is the Greener Housing Strategy Annual Review. Sophie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Sophie Tuffin, Service Manager for Housing Maintenance Programmes and Servicing. So slide 1, this is the third annual report which details the progress made between September 2024 and August 2025. The strategy is structured around 4 key priorities which have helped us to focus attention to achieve 892 homes upgraded to EPC Band C through incremental improvements and also whole house retrofits. EPC Band C coverage has increased to 51.37%. There has been an increase in environmental monitors and renewable technology within the district. There has been an expansion of future home standards in our new build development. And we have also introduced more community events we've discussed this evening, most recently with a focus on greener housing. So that also has been really positive in encouraging the wider take-up of renewable technology within our district. In terms of regulation, the strategy continues to be current with legislation and supports compliance with the Social Housing Regulation Act 2023. Implications. The report recommends a refreshed action plan to be issued in October this year, and that's because it recognises the amount of work that's happened over the last 3 years and aims to keep us ambitious. Decarbonisation will have implications because the council has 87% of its homes that are heated by gas central heating. So the council must be really careful to balance the pace of change with the potential impacts on residents, so that in terms of fuel poverty. The cost of decarbonisation has increased. Initially modelled in 2023 at just over 9 million to upgrade all homes to band EPC by 2030. Recent modelling indicates that the cost could be nearer to 15 million. To ensure that our voice is heard, officers are feeding into government consultations that impact decarbonisation. So these are consultations like Decent Homes and the Home Energy Model. In July, there were changes to current calculations for energy performance certificates, and that effect saw some of our homes which had been improved to EPC Band C fall back to a D. So gives you an idea of the challenges. The official rollout of the Future Home Standards appeared to be delayed, and we are aware of this. It seems to be around industry readiness to ban gas boilers on new build developments, and the delay in the new home energy model, which will be the calculation on assessing a home's energy efficiency. Slide 3, please. So the recommendations proposed, this is a really positive report of the progress being achieved across the district. We recommend that members continue to support the green housing strategy and the budget to improve over 600 homes a year to 2030, and to support a proposal for a new action plan to deliver decarbonisation. Thank you. Any questions?
Sean.
With the change, as you said, some of them have slipped from Band C to Band D.
Yeah.
Will there be then more funding available from the government to push them back up to Band C, or
Not currently. We are taking part in conversations with government, so roundtables, and we are part of that conversation to tell the government, DESNES in particular, the challenges that we're facing around co-funding and the effects that new changes, in particular in the EPCs, are having. So I think we've got a voice to be able to communicate that, but currently there's no more funding.
Thank you.
Richard. Yes, well, I'm very, very pleased with the progress we are making on the green strategy. It's something that is very close to my heart. I will just boast and say I've made 86% of all of my electricity this year on my house from panels and batteries. So this actually then comes to the thing that it would appear to me that the government, to make, I don't know why, are changing the goalposts. I'm concerned that we've spent a lot of money getting some of our properties up to C, and they might be dropping down to D, and then we'll have to spend on them again. I know that the buzz thing is to heat electrically from the government, which is the most expensive way to do any heating, and I know it's the way they're pushing us down. And I'm now thinking on the income and the expenditure of our tenants, and if we're going down that route, we've got to be so careful that we're not going to penalise them on their heating, because we're hitting these performance. Can we mitigate that by putting PV on the roof for them, so that we're producing some of their electricity to offset that, or is that going to be prohibitively expensive?
It is the largest cost for decarbonisation currently for the council, putting PV panels, and then we've got the ongoing maintenance costs of those. So we do have to be careful how we phase that approach in. We are looking at opportunities in funding that could help us introduce more panels onto our roofs. We've also got to balance that not every roof and every tenant would be positively impacted by that, or could even have the panels. So we are looking at what we can do to have a fair approach to for everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, it's an interesting subject again, Sophie, and the PV issue is, I think it's both for us as a housing provider and for the people who own their own houses or rent in the private sector. It's the cost of heating, etc., is a challenge, and decarbonising. I've got PV and I've got a battery as of this year. I know what it saves me in terms of the daily thing, but then I've got to look at what it's cost to actually install that, and that's beyond the reach of quite a lot of people. I'm fortunate, and I acknowledge that, but it's about how we make that more generally available right the way across the board. in a way that people can take ownership of. So there we are. But I'm going to take you to the recommendation that we note the progress and the good progress, because we've come a long way, and deliver the priorities and actions of the greener housing strategy. Members all happy with that?
Yes, indeed.
Thank you. Brings us to the draft housing landlord and tenancy policy. Kirsty.
Thank you, Chair. Kirsty Farmer, Service Manager for Housing Resident Services. I'm here this evening to run through both the draft housing landlord tenancy policy and mutual exchange policy. Firstly, I'll address the tenancy policy. So the purpose of the tenancy policy is to outline the Council's approach to tenancy management in line with the Localism Act 2011 and the Regulator for Social Housing's tenancy standard. The policy supports the proposed housing landlord strategy 25 to 28 and aims to ensure fair, consistent and effective management of council tenancies. The key aims of the policy are on the slide, which I'll let you read for yourself. The main change to the draft policy is the proposal to move away from flexible fixed-term tenancies to secure tenancies after a one-year introductory period. Flexible fixed-term tenancies were introduced under the Localism Act 2011. They allowed councils to offer secure tenancies for a fixed term, usually 5 years, instead of lifetime tenancies. The original aims of the flexible fixed-term tenancies were to improve housing stock management, ensure fair allocation, reduce under-occupation and promote tenant responsibility. The review process begins 12 months before expiry of those fixed terms. It assesses household composition, income, property suitability, conduct and support needs. It involves multiple teams and is very resource intensive. To date, we've not terminated any tenancies through a fixed term review. Nationally, there has been a shift away from flexible fixed term tenancies to promote stability of tenure and communities. Looking at potential LGR partners, Winchester do not offer flexible fixed term tenancies and Southampton only offer them on very rare occasions. Next slide, please. Thank you. I've highlighted some of the challenges with fixed term tenancies on the slide. Again, I'll let you read those for yourself. I'd like to bring to your attention that the resource pressure on housing landlord services has increased significantly since the inception of flexible fixed term tenancies. Social housing regulation has added additional activities and workloads on housing staff and managers, as well as LGR, increased compliance, new and amended legislation, increased tenant engagement, damp and mould responses, increased from over 250 to over 400 voids per year, empty homes, and a whole new work stream in greener housing. For the housing options team who assess housing need for each of the flexible fixed term tenancies, flexible term review has pressures on the housing register as well as the number of lettings that they have to administer. Overall, flexible fixed-term tenancies are both resource-intensive to the council and have a potentially negative impact on the health and well-being of tenants who may live under the stress of losing their home at the end of their flexible fixed term. The likelihood of possession being granted through the courts is complex and as yet untried due to the increasingly fewer landlords who use them. The proposal is to end flexible fixed-term tenancies and offer new tenants a one-year introductory with a secure lifetime tenancy. Any existing flexible fixed-term tenants will be offered a secure tenancy at the end of their current fixed term. I'll now move on to the mutual exchange policy. So the housing landlord mutual exchange policy has been separated from the housing landlord tenancy policy to provide tenants with a transparent mutual exchange process. It provides tenants with all the relevant information that they need to decide if a mutual exchange is right for them and the process on how to proceed. The policy sets out NFDC's approach to mutual exchanges, enabling tenants to swap homes with others across the UK. It aims to promote mutual exchange as a housing solution, improve housing options and mobility, and make better use of existing housing stock. Tenants with secure or flexible fixed-term tenancies have the legal right to exchange, subject to landlord consent and specific legal grounds for refusal. The process is tenant-led, with where tenants find their own exchange partner. Once they've found an exchange partner, they submit a mutual exchange application. NFDCs carry out a property inspection and issue a report to the tenant on the conditions of the property. The council have 42 days to issue a decision on the mutual exchange. We carried out 41 mutual exchanges in the last 12 months. I can move on to the next slide. And the recommendations. So the recommendations for panel are to consider the draft housing landlord tenancy policy, including the end of the flexible fixed term tenancies, and support the policy to proceed to Cabinet, and to consider the draft housing landlord mutual exchange policy and support the approval by the portfolio holder for housing and homelessness.
Thanks, Kirsty. That saves me reading it again later. Melvin.
Thank you, Chair. Just to emphasise that this came before the tenant involvement group, this policy. It was warmly greeted with the change in lifetime tenancies from fixed term. And going back to the New Milton community there, one tenant came up in quite distressed state saying, you know, I want to know what's going to happen. I'm coming towards the end of my 5-year term, and what's going to happen? I'm worried about my child. We have to move schools, and we was able, with officers attending that community there, to give reassurance. And that was really the first time I've thought about this as an issue. And the fixed term tenancy really does give a lot of stress to tenants under that, and I think it's a really excellent thing to offer lifetime. And the only reservation that I personally had was that it might increase the right to buy, but that's probably not going to happen now. So thank you.
Okay.
On one hand, that's a really good idea, but it stops the opportunity to sort out the under-occupation issue that we have. Have we got any new ideas on how to help that out and eliminate it?
So as I say, we've had the flexible fixed terms in for quite some time now, and even due to under-occupation, over-occupation, we have never ended a tenancy through that. The difficulty is having the available housing stock to rehouse those people. So with the data collection that Dave's obviously mentioned before as well, part of that is we are going to be looking at all of our tenants as a whole, and seeing what the data tells us about that under and over occupation, and then we can look at, is there any schemes that we need to start up, is there any sort of incentives that we need to look at, but at the moment, until we actually know what the picture looks like, I'm unable to sort of say which way that's going to go at the moment, but all I can say is that we haven't actually ended a flexible fixed term due to under occupation.
Any other questions, members? John?
Going to go, just given, when I saw lifetime, I'm thinking of maybe I'm too much involved with the diocese, but when you see lifetime rectories and how they go and they're there and you can't move them, the person's there and you can't improve, isn't lifetime, couldn't it mean a certain term, like 50 years or something like a long term? But lifetime always worries me for the very future. We don't know who can tell what goes on. I mean, I just think of it as, well, you've got a portfolio holder here who's thought about it a lot, to say it obviously is the way you want to go, but I feel if I were planning ahead, I'd say 50 years and maybe extendable to 50 years. Or it's just, lifetime can be a tremendous difficulty when you, like for example, a rectory where suddenly the church might go and there's the rectory. It is causing some things, a lot of problems by people having a thing for a lifetime, and of course it's not just a lifetime, it's for the ancestors as well. They can go on further, because it's written in the agreement, isn't it, that you could just get one in succession, but that's another lifetime. It's a long time to look ahead.
Yeah, so totally understand with the terminology of lifetime, but it is within legislative constraints. And it is the terminology that's used within legislation. We still do have the conditions of the tenancy, so if tenants are breaching any of those conditions, we still do have powers that we can get possession back of those properties. So as much as it says lifetime, we still do have those conditions that we can follow. Unfortunately, there is nothing that says that we could put a cap on 20 years, 50 years, or whatever that looks like.
Has any other, has it ever been used 50 years or 25 years? Is that another way, other authorities have thought of?
No, so unfortunately with the flexible fixed terms, the maximum term was 10 years, but most local authorities did settle for 5 that used them. But as I say, most local authorities again have moved away and gone back to the secure lifetime tenancies.
I think what we're doing is taking away the stress and giving tenants a sense of security, aren't we? But as Kirsty just said, we've got plenty of rules and conditions which, if broken, and they don't get broken often, do they? So it is in those cases, in those rare cases, we've got action. Kate.
Could I ask the portfolio holders, I've wondered all these years why we don't build 1-bedroom bungalows so that we can free up these 3-bedroom houses with huge gardens in council estates. Because I think it was...
Well, first of all, I fully support the proposal that's laid before you. Obviously, I've seen this before. There was some debate about flexible versus fixed term, obviously, because as you said, under occupancy can be an issue, but more importantly for me, it removes the stress and the strain on the administration and also on the tenant to know that they have this place for as long as they need it. It is a home for them, but also, running alongside this, there is the mutual exchange policy. I mean, if you're lucky enough to find a bungalow tenant that actually would rather have a house because they've got a lot of grandkids, then you might well have a mutually happy exchange. So it's a fine line. I know it's a difficult, it's a challenge, but quite frankly, after bearing in mind the feedback I've had from tenants and certainly from the TIG, then yes, I fully support these proposals.
Melvin.
Very interestingly, I live in, I under-occupy my property. It's a 3-bedroom property with an extremely large garden. And if I give you this viewpoint, there is absolutely no way that I'm going to move into another property that is going to be of a lower standard or needs redecorating, needs work doing to it, needs recarpeting, new curtains, new furniture. I did make a comment, my fridge freezer is probably bigger than the kitchen in some of the 1-bedroom properties. But I would move into a new property. But new properties are allocated to those in need. And I think that is an area where we could look at, and I would consider moving into a new property where I'm not going to have to redecorate, not going to have to do a lot of works, and there is an incentive. I would quite happily move, but I am not going to go to the expense, and it might sound selfish, but I'm not going to save £10 a week in rent. It might cost me £10,000 in overall costs to actually make a move.
Yeah, I'm just going to make the comment there that we're pointing out that these are people's homes. And it's a very emotive subject when you say you need to move or something like that, because this is where you've lived. I mean, look at some of us can look around at our own personal situations and say, well, perhaps we under-occupy, but they're our homes and it's our choices. So, and it's a difficult one for us to dictate to people.
No, if they want to.
Yeah, if they want to move. And I appreciate that's what you were saying. But there we are. Sorry, Sean.
You were saying surrounding authorities don't have fixed-term tenancies. So is this move partly to ease things when LGR comes in? So when we align with another authority, it will be less friction?
In all honesty, this is something that's been thought about LGR, but it would make things easier when the move does happen. but it's something that we have been considering for some time, and it is more based on the tenants and the tenants' expectations and taking some of that burden away and stress from the tenants rather than to support whatever happens in the future.
And I'll ask Richard to come in at this point as well, and then we are going to the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of points to answer, to complement Kirsty's answering Sean. I think that line there was just to give you information in terms of helping you make or support the recommendation. The primary driver is the length of time it takes for us to process these, and as you've heard, the crux of it is making sure tenants see value in their home and invest in their home. So they're the primary reasons, but that line is just for information purposes, really, to help you make a contextual recommendation. And if I can just come back on Kate's point, we have been evolving the estate management, the tenancy management team over the last couple of years, and we've now got a tenancy sustainment team, and that team is there to provide support in whatever way tenants need. And if tenants need assistance to move to a smaller property, then that team is geared up to do that. What we're not doing necessarily is forcing people to move, but we're there as and when they need us to help move, resolve removals, facilitate that kind of thing, furniture, and any grant funding that we can get access to.
I did suggest that 4 years ago, so thank you.
Moving to the recommendation that Kirsty so readily read out for me, are we all happy with that, members? Maintenance and repairs to empty homes and homes undergoing mutual exchange policy for housing landlord services, a periodic review. That used to be the void policy.
Snappily titled. Yeah. Hi. Service Manager for Housing Maintenance Programmes and Servicing. I am here to present a revision of the I don't know if I can say that again. Maintenance repairs to empty homes undergoing mutual exchange policy. The policy details maintenance and repairs arrangements covering empty homes and properties undergoing mutual exchange. This is a rewrite of an existing policy, and it's been updated to reflect current legislation and operational changes. So once approved, the policy will be published on the Council's website, ensuring transparency and accessibility for residents and stakeholders. Empty homes, commonly known as voids, will be processed to ensure that homes are turned around at the earliest opportunity to minimise rent loss. Consultation with TIC members provided some really useful insights which have been incorporated into the new policy. For example, I think we have covered this earlier, but voids, that term will be changed to empty homes, and the term stock condition will now be referred to as a home condition report. A new category for reporting was introduced, category S. This will help key reporting, which is really important when we look at the understanding of why people leave their homes, the condition those homes are returned to us in, and the cost associated with repairs. Slide 2. The purpose of the policy is to establish a clear and consistent letting standards that supports safe, warm and secure homes for all of our tenants. The policy aims to be transparent for both incoming and outgoing tenants, to improve tenant satisfaction through consistent property standards. We've listened to charities who have told us that flooring in particular is hugely expensive, so wherever possible these will be left. This also starts to align with recent government consultations and proposed changes to decent home standards. It supports the Council's energy efficiency and decarbonisation goals, so where energy improvements can be made, homes will receive those improvements while empty. That's to minimise disruption to tenants. it can be quite intrusive. So that will also mean that homes have an improved energy performance rating when they're let, and that helps tackle fuel poverty. The policy aims to improve pre-inspections, so that's prioritising early assessments of the condition of the properties, which helps us to plan more effectively as those properties come in and need any repairs or improvements. And we're looking to improve welcome packs as well, improving the customer journey, giving the right information to customers, which will help us with repair calls that can often be generated when somebody initially moves into a home. So slide 3 is recommendation that the council approve the changes. Thank you.
Members, questions? Neil.
Explain a bit more about the policy on flooring, because obviously it can be very expensive, as you say, for a new tenant. If you don't have any flooring down, it can be expensive for us if we have to put new flooring down. So
yeah.
How do you sort of decide, and how do we review this?
So initially we assess the condition of the property, and wherever anything can be let and it's of a good standard, then we would leave it for the incoming residents. We do have to be mindful that sometimes those residents don't want the carpets that have been left and they choose to fit their own. We are in particular working with residents to help us get the right service level for those individual customers. So I think it's a difficult one, because if we were saying that we were going to replace carpets for every single property, we currently turn around about 400 empty properties a year, which would be obviously a huge cost to the council. So it's a bit of a balancing act, knowing the customers that are coming through.
It's interesting when you look at the standards and costs and that. My partner rents properties. When she went to a letting agency, the letting agent said, "Do you want to be a good landlord or a rich landlord?" She answered, "A good landlord." He said, "Well, you won't be rich then." And I think that applies to us as well. If we're going to be good landlords, we are going to provide the service that's necessary, and it has a cost. So I'll take you to that recommendation. All in favour? Thank you. Getting there eventually. Chris, the homelessness update, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry.
It's okay. Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. Yes, I'm Christopher Pope. I'm Service Manager for Housing Options and Tenancy Accounts. So I'm pleased to present the biannual update on homelessness within our district, covering key pressures, developments and future plans. Next slide, please. Firstly, prevention of homelessness it remains a key priority. Thanks to an increased government grant funding for 25-26, we've strengthened our efforts, which I'll come to later. The main cause of homelessness continues to be evictions from friends and family, Section 21 notices as landlords exit the market, and domestic abuse. Encouragingly, our prevention rates has risen from about an average of around 45% last year to around 60% plus since April. This is largely due to the proactive work that the team have been carrying out, helping people into the private rented sector, accommodation, using advice, everyday kind of life skills, links to landlords, rent deposit schemes and guarantor support. However, challenges persist. When landlords are determined to end the tenancies, especially under Section 21, prevention becomes much harder. You can't keep people in their homes if the landlord wants to sell. So it is harder. So in such cases, we move to relief duties and finding long-term accommodation and or temporary accommodation or emergency accommodation where it's needed. Relief rates have been consistent, but the current rate of successful relief, should I say, is around about 27%. Next page, please. So, emergency accommodation is under significant pressure. We have around 40 families and 18 single individuals in emergency housing at this point in time. The budget is over profile of around about £175,000. And that's due to the sheer number of people needing it. The situation has been worsened perhaps by landlords leaving our private sector leasing scheme, reducing available properties by around 10%. However, we've had some success in minimising those numbers. This has led to difficult prioritisation decisions, while some families have remained in emergency accommodation for longer than we'd like, so that we don't have to put the people residing in our temporary accommodation through the PSL scheme back into emergency accommodation. So at present, 3 families have exceeded the government's 6-week target of remaining in emergency accommodation. However, we continue to review and work with these families very regularly, meeting weekly to look at these cases and discuss ways that we can offer alternative accommodation to these families and working closely with them to find suitable alternatives. You may remember my previous presentations explaining some of the reasons why we keep people in or why people remain in emergency accommodation, because we do take into account their personal circumstances, their SEN educational needs at school, their support networks they've fought so rightly for with their doctors and social services and all those other kind of additional needs they may have. So I don't present that information lightly. It isn't an ideal situation for anyone, but I just want to re-emphasise the importance we place on those people in emergency accommodation. Next slide, please. So on the Home Search Housing Register, we've seen a reduction in applicants since introducing the annual renewal process. Again, you will remember me probably around about this time last year explaining that we're having a new renewal process, meaning that every applicant needs to update their information annually. This ensures applicants' circumstances are current and eligibility for the scheme is maintained. However, we've seen some reductions in that. Most reductions have been in Band 4, our lowest priority group. And there is a robust process to, if people don't reply to their annual renewal requests, we then do contact them again. So, to strengthen our response, we made several key investments. A new homelessness prevention team leader to drive quality and training, to monitor cases and to assist that team in managing cases. We've introduced 4 floating support workers providing early intervention and helping those people in the day-to-day, such as searching for properties, preparing for interviews, budgeting advice, claiming benefits, ensuring bank statements are there, getting ready to be a good tenant and accessing the private sector market. We've also introducing, should I say, a dedicated training package to keep staff up to date with legislation and ensuring that they're confident in applying that law. We've also further strengthened our partnerships with voluntary organisations such as the Crossings and Youth and Families Matter in Totton, who have very recently introduced a weekly drop-in prevention service. And with proposals to expand district-wide advice. We're also starting an advertising campaign to appeal to private landlords to join our private sector leasing scheme to highlight the advantages to them and, of course, the advantages to us. And, as Paul mentioned earlier, we've been working on a new homelessness and rough sleeping strategy, plus a refresh of the allocations policy, which will both be seen by panel in January. So in summary, whilst we made progress in prevention, the pressures on emergency accommodation and relief duties remain high. We're committed to continuing our work with partners, investing in staff and supporting residents through crises and challenges they're facing. Any questions?
Chris, I'm glad to see this report again. We've come so far over the last few years, haven't we, with the amount of accommodation. It's really good news. It continues to be good news. And I know the team do a lot of good work out there, working to prevent. And so pass on our our congratulations to the team. And that obviously includes yourself. So we really do appreciate everything you do in terms of homelessness. I'm going to move us on because we're just noting this one, and I'm also conscious of the time. I did say had members brought sandwiches tonight. So we are noting that report. The annual strategic priorities of the Safe and New Forest Partnership. Brian, in about 5 minutes.
Oh, I can make it 4, Chair. I haven't got sandwiches. Brian Byrne, Service Manager for Community Safety and Support Services. And thank you, Chair. It's just the opportunity to provide members with a midway point update on this year's annual strategic priorities as set out within following the completion of the annual strategic assessment of crime and disorder. And just to provide some context for members, it is the function of the local authority each year to undertake an analysis of crime and disorder by incident, by type, by location each year. And by that we formulate all of the data from police, health, probation, youth services and so forth, including our partners in fire. Those are statutory partners, and we compile all of that data and we publish that in an annual strategic assessment. And following a review of that data, which identifies what are the key emerging trends within the elements of crime and disorder, and the partnership, strategic partnership of those agencies will agree those main priorities for the following year. So currently this year, we're working from 25-26, our domestic abuse, which includes VOG, violence against women and girls. Although that's one strap line, essentially they are two very different priorities for varying different reasons. Possessions of weapons, incorporating also within our duty under the serious violence duty as well, and shoplifting and burglary, both domestic and commercial. So some of the activities which we've been undertaking since April of this year, in terms of our targeted work, particularly around commercial burglaries and residential burglaries, was to enhance the delivery of our DNA products. So one of the things we did over the last 12 to 18 months was by distributing on an intelligence-led approach of where we know burglaries are taking place, by providing those DNA packages to communities, to businesses, free at the point of contact, and then enhancing that with an awareness campaign. We are seeing a reduction within burglary within those particular areas. So we are really pleased to see some of those positive long-term investments. Will take further work over many years, I think, to see some of those benefits coming through. But again, and also again from a resident's point of view, it is an influencer, obviously, again, within things like household insurance, business insurance, as again, it's seen as a risk reducer for offences within higher crime areas. Chair, you mentioned earlier on some of the work, again, we've been doing, particularly around opportunistic theft of cycles. You know, the theft of cycles has significantly changed, as has the cost of cycles particularly. You know, the day of a £50 or £100 bicycle is now very much moved into the spheres of £2,000, £3,000, £4,000, particularly when they're also supported by electrification and batteries and so forth. So, but by the development within that, alongside the greener agenda, it has also increased a marketability within the crime area to actually exploit that particularly as well, because of the cost return if you are stealing those and selling them on. So again, one of the things we've been trying to do, particularly with our policing partners, with towns and parishes, with community groups, is again using the bike marking kits, which again uniquely mark bicycles or property. And then one of the things we've done particularly very different with that is that, as you mentioned, we're physically doing that at road shows, community events and so forth, rather than handing the kit out, because what we don't want to do is to see that kit just end up in the kitchen drawer. So again, by doing that, we then make sure that those bikes, those details are then uploaded onto the National Register, which is how this system works, so that if the bike or item is stolen, we can nationally, through that database, return those items to the lawful owner. Again, one of the things we've been doing, particularly around shoplifting, I think, you know, members, we discussed here for a few years about the national increase, particularly within shoplifting. We saw a particular spike 2 years ago within the Leamington area, and we did some work. We worked with about 200 retailers for a good year around understanding the impact within the retail sector, particularly within that area, along with our policing partners, the town and parish council as well. That manifested itself into a small working group, and from that we then delivered if you like, a retail crime prevention day down at Leamington, bringing in some partners from the private sector, from the security industry, from the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner, and again some of the national trade and retailers and smaller retail sector. The offer within that was to utilise a system called UK PAC, which is a database whereby, particularly we find for the smaller retail sector, where they do experience shoplifting, there's a cost implication clearly in the loss of item, but there's a cost implication in terms of staff attending to provide statements, download CCTV, attend court and so forth. So whilst we were seeing an initial report of those offences, we were seeing a drop-off at that point onwards in terms of then that leading into statements being provided, coming to court and so forth. So recognising that, that's the whole basis of the UK PAC system, which is it's an online help with real people in there, helping the retail sector to upload the data, actually write the statements for them and with them to enable those prosecutions to go ahead. We are starting to see a real turnaround, particularly within the engagement level of that, but also the confidence level within policing and within the right services, particularly around reporting. So we are seeing an uplift in reporting, which is exactly what we wanted to see, because alongside that, we're also seeing an uplift within conviction rates as well. So again, what we're seeing is that kind of what I call a through care, if you like, approach that we're seeing it right through to the judicial system and judicial interventions. On that bit, we're going to be expanding that into the licensing trade. We've just worked with some partners, particularly within Lyndhurst, following recent events, and we're going to be working with the local police again to try and bring that into both the licensing and hopefully the retail sector within the village as well. I won't mention that Lyndhurst, you'll all recall 2 years ago, it was known as the burglary capital. It wasn't, but I'll leave that statement there. Other bits we've been focusing on is around nominals of offending behaviour. So in terms of targeting and mapping and intervening within repeat offenders, through our partnership action group, which I chair, we've identified 38 nominals who are high risk of offending, who we have set target action plans around multi-agency to look at prevention, and housing are also a part of that in terms of resettlement, accommodation, drug and alcohol, substance misuse, mental health. So it's a real thoroughfare package of wrapping around, looking at the causes of offending behaviour to interrupt that, to therefore then break that pattern of behaviour. I mentioned earlier, Chair, the investment by the administration within CCTV. In the last quarter, as I say, we've added an additional 14 cameras, with more coming online, and hopefully with that project being completed by the end of October. And in terms of our commitment to reducing incidents of knife-related offences, we delivered a 3-day conference training event, working with education, working with towns and parishes, police, volunteer sectors across the district, with the main aim of providing the toolkit, the skill set for those local services to work with young people at the earliest opportunity in the local communities, rather than waiting for that offending or behaviour, risk-taking behaviour, to increase to the point of it's in the judicial system, or God forbid, it's resulted in significant injury or death. So that was something we were very proud of. We will be working with those agencies going forward to make sure that they're confident and competent in delivering that, and we'll quality assure that, and we have some additional funding available, residual funding, whereby if we identify a second cohort, we will provide that training again, free at the point of contact for our partners to deliver that within our communities. The last point, Chair, is just some of the work again of the partnership was we've undertaken 8 community events across the district this year. Waterside, Gangwerley, Fawley at the 999 Day, working again with partners, working with residents, working with the community. New Milton we did 2, one both street-based, one resident-based within the North Milton housing development, not North Milton Estates, I'm learning. Moving forward, we also did some work in and around Ringwood, Sway, New Milton and Lymington. From those days, we also undertook resident satisfaction surveys. 472 surveys were completed with members of the public. Some of the key line outputs from that, which we'll publish later on in the year, but an early indication is 99.4% of those surveyed in terms of crime and disorder were either satisfied or very satisfied about living within the area of the New Forest. So again, saying a high confidence rate around that. 98.9% again surveyed saying they felt safe and fairly safe within the district. Again, when considering crime and disorder during the daytime, slightly dropping down to 89.9% when compared to night time. When you see the full report, when you then drill down into that, the reason we saw the drop off then was actually because I don't need to go out at night time. It's not because I'm scared, it's because functionally I don't need to go out. So it helps contextualize that drop off a little bit as well. 6% of residents surveyed were affected by ASB, but the definition of that was things like speeding, parking, scooters and that type of thing. So not that traditional stereotypical ASB that maybe we would all associate when we think of it or what's portrayed press-wise. And I think it's also fair and balanced to say when we look at that, it's not juvenile necessarily related. I think it's all we need to always pay redress to that. Often the ASB that reports we're dealing with are often nighttime economy, adult-based as well. So I think again, when we're providing some interventions, we need to make sure we're focusing that in the right way and making sure that those messages going out are rightly balanced as well. One last thing for me, Chair, as well, was some of the work we've done, particularly with the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner, was to ensure that where there was needs and services that were underrepresented or not provided within the district, we worked with some towns and parishes, some of the youth groups, to try and obtain some grant funding. And I'm pleased to say that this year, all of the grants that went forward to the OPCC, out of the 144 applications across the county, all of our applications were agreed in full, whereas outside the district, they were significantly reduced or not funded at all. So I'm really pleased to say that some of those bids will be things like £48,000. One of the things we did was to try and get some bigger parish councils working with smaller communities. So we've done some combined work with one of our partners in the Handy Trust on the water side, who have also now diversifying and providing some outreach community work for areas like Sway and Branscore, East Boulder, I beg your pardon. So we put in an agreed joint bid for those, so that again, that cross-border collaboration, embedding that wider learning across those from bigger towns and parishes into those more rural areas, and that helping with resilience as well. Again, youth options in Totton, we had just under £50,000, Fawley Parish about £5,500. And again, one of the work I think some members may recall we spoke about here last year and the year before was around the change in misogynistic tendencies, behaviours within youth groups, particularly within young males, that we wanted to challenge. We still want to continue with that programme, and again we've received some additional funding which we as the District Council will be leading on and providing some of that training with our partners across the district. So Chair, just some of the updates. I'll leave that there, Chair, and if there's any questions.
I was going to say it's a good place to leave it, Brian, and I'm going to take us straight to the recommendation, which is to note, because we've received a very comprehensive update there with some very good initiatives such as the cycle marking, etc. Because some people I know think their bikes are precious and they must be reunited with them. It particularly applies to one member in the chamber, and obviously the shoplifting initiative. So are you all happy to note that very comprehensive report, because I've still got 2 more to go. Next one is Health and Wellbeing Action Plan. Richard.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Richard Knott, Strategic Director. I'm presenting this update on behalf of Jamie Burton and Joe McClay, who couldn't be here tonight. Very quick update on the annual presentation that we normally provide to members. Just a point of memory here that the current health and wellbeing plan covers the period 22 to 25, and it is written to be aligned with the Hampshire Health and Wellbeing Board strategy, which has also been recently renewed. Following the priority reprovision of the corporate plan, there won't be a revised NFDC plan after 2025. However, we believe that through our evidence gathering from both the county and the district, that the current priorities are still relevant, which are to increase physical activity and mental health and working in partnership. So our plan is to continue to evolve the action plan and align some additional priorities around tackling cardiovascular disease and childhood obesity. The focus will continue to be on supporting those in most need, and we will continue to utilise funding from national sources and our own SIL funds. Just want to highlight some of the great successes that we've had in supporting health and wellbeing initiatives, and these will be no surprise to members who have participated in some of these openings or actually the events themselves. So the recommendation is to support the progress and updated health and wellbeing action plan at Appendix 2.
Again, I'm going to take you straight to the recommendation. Not that I want to stop you asking questions, but it is getting late. So are you happy to go straight to that recommendation?
I did just have one slight concern that the majority of things on that report were amber.
Okay, so we're all in favour of that recommendation. Quality strategy. So, Rachel, we're finally getting to you.
Thank you, Chair. Rachel Higgins, Environmental Protection Team Manager in Environmental Health. The report before you, Chair, is an update on the public consultation with regards to the draft air quality strategy, which was put before panel earlier in the year. The consultation was put before the public for 2 months between March and May, generally seeking opinions on local air quality, but also focusing on the 6 priority areas identified within the draft air quality strategy. I'm quite surprised to report that 96 responses were received, mainly from the public, a couple from local parish councils at Totton and Fawley, plus 2 from UK HSA and the National Park. Following that consultation, we have made some minor amendments to the draft air quality strategy, which were listed in the consultation report that was part of the pack before you. And the finalised air quality strategy is also put before you with those final amendments put into place. Next slide, please. The majority of the respondents support the air quality strategy with the main concerns raised with regards to planned development and transportation and the pollutants associated with those. Wanting clearer public information available, which is something we identified ourselves, and improvements to collaborative working to include the public more, and other organisations were identified, for example, ABP, further industry reported, the farming industry, for example. Officers' opinion was that the consultation itself would then help steer officer decision when we've progressed the actual strategy and the actions we take, and where appropriate we will include public involvement in that decision-making process. I would remind the panel that the Council is required to develop an air quality strategy for New Forest following the revocation of our remaining air quality management in Lyndhurst back in 2023. So therefore, the recommendations proposed is that you consider the air quality strategy in its updated version and also its progress through to full Council for recommendations of adoption. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, members, again, this has come back to us following consultation. We've seen it before, so I'm going to move us straight to, now we've done the consultation, straight to adoption. All agreed? Thank you. Ben.
Thank you, Chair. Ben Stockley, Food and Safety Team Manager. Here to talk to you just for a couple of minutes about the performance of the food team in the past year and looking forward to next year. Essentially, as you probably know, we inspect all food businesses in the district, around 1,800 of them. And we do that by prioritising our efforts on those which are of the highest risks, which may be due to the food they serve or whether they're a good business or a business which isn't doing so well. And I'm pleased to report that we inspected the vast majority of our businesses over the past year. The highest risk businesses, A's, B's and C's, we did 100%. Some of the lower risk C's we did less than 100%, but slightly. D businesses, which are sort of medium risk, we did around 60%, and then our lowest risk E businesses we did around a higher 70% due to the way we've done our work, the way we've sort of changed the way we can deal with them. In addition to that, we've taken many food samples which support our work and help us to focus on businesses and give advice and help to businesses which are setting up. And in addition to that, we've investigated lots of complaints from members of the public around alleged food poisoning or around hygiene of premises, and we've also advised food businesses as well. Next slide, please. Looking forward to the coming year, again, we're hoping to undertake all the due inspections. We're expecting to do something in the region of 700 inspections plus 400 low risk interventions. On top of that, we get, as you can see, requested by businesses to do re-inspections. These are typically businesses which have got a very poor rating, and of course it affects their ability to trade effectively, so they come back to us. We charge them for it, but they can have a new rating, which obviously is brings in income for us, but actually ensures that we're raising the standards of our businesses overall. Looking forward, it's quite positive. We've just taken on the last couple of weeks a new member of staff, so for the first time in as long as I can really remember, we've got a full complement of staff, which is fantastic. So all being well, we're going to be catching up for next year. I think that's about it. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Ben. This is a statutory report, so I'm not going to go straight to the recommendation. I am going to go to questions on this one. Questions? Neil?
Yeah, just I scribble all this stuff down while I'm reading them, and then I've got to try and work out what it actually says. Yeah, I mean, it's good progress being made there, and I really like the way that we allow the better performing businesses to be self-inspecting effectively. That's a good way of doing it. You're trusting low-risk operators. But can we get the low-risk numbers bigger so that more people... Is that happening?
Yeah, well, it would be nice. Yeah. I mean, obviously, we already have 96% of businesses, I believe, have the higher food hygiene rating of 3, 4 or 5. It would be nice to get higher standards across the district, but unfortunately we always find that some people, often due to financial pressures, let things slip and you know, they end up getting a poor rating. We do work with our businesses to improve them when we come across them, but that doesn't necessarily reflect with them getting a new rating, because it's like an MOT, it's a point in time rather than sort of going back and giving them a new rating every so often. But yes, standards are about where, you know, where we'd hope them to be.
So you really think we're about where it should be? And
if you look across the country, I think we're performing pretty well, to be honest. But you know, we manage to do most of our inspections. I mean, in many other areas, they don't even do their inspections. But if you look at the number of 3, 4 and 5 food hygiene rated businesses here in the New Forest, that's fairly similar to other areas in the UK.
Any other questions? Ben, I think we appreciate again the hard work that you do, because there's an awful lot of inspections, an awful lot of work goes into this, and I can remember not long after I first joined the council, many years ago, that I went out on one with hygiene officers and food hygiene officers, and it's remarkable the detail you go into and the hard work that goes into it. This is not a simple process, but it is a process that keeps the public safe. So again, can we say thank you to the team for everything they do in keeping the public of the New Forest safe. And we can all go into restaurants, provided we look at the food hygiene rating with some degree of certainty. And I think we just need to remind the public as well that 1 is not a good result, is it? The best rating is 5. So if you go into a restaurant and say, look, they've got a 1, that must be good. No, it's not. So the recommendation is consider the report and deliver and the work done. Are we all happy to do that? Thank you very much. Next item is future meetings. Those meetings, the dates are on the papers somewhere. Not immediately in front of me, but I'll leave it to your initiative to note those meeting dates. Are you all happy to do that, and so that we can include them? And the last, apart from the urgent items and the work programme, the last is the portfolio holders who have got very succinct reports to give you. Dan.
Thank you, Chair. I promise I won't keep you long. Community resilience. We continue to work closely with Southern Water on having small bottled water storage in locations across the district. And I'm sure you can all think of why with the last 2 autumns that we've had. Further resilience, there should be any future issues. We will also be setting up another online all-member briefing with Southern Water over the next couple of months. We are currently reviewing all of the Council's business continuity plans to ensure critical activities can continue to be delivered during an incident. Refresher training has been rolled out to all service managers, and the Council's policy and business continuity plan is currently being reviewed and updated. Brian's given you a very detailed update on community safety, but one thing I could touch upon is the 800 responses to the PSPO consultation, which Brian is presently working through, and this will be an item at our next panel meeting in January, which we covered in the upcoming work that we've got. And finally, community support. I updated at Council about the launch on the 9th of September of the New Forest Community Lottery. 71 different groups attended from across the district, with 24 organisations already joining up to the lottery. And we know that from the positive feedback, there will be plenty more applications. It's positive to see that one of the first main prizes is a year's fitness subscription, which directly links and supports to our Freedom Leisure partnership, whilst obviously promoting healthy lifestyles. That's about it.
Thanks, Dan. The local media in social media in New Milton are really pushing the lottery, so I think it's a good news event, and I know quite a few organisations within our area have joined up. Hilary. Any questions of Dan apart from that? But I think it's all good news. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got so much to go through tonight, but I won't. First of all, I really have once again to commend the officers for the amount of preparation for this meeting. I mean, the amount of work they get through, and what we've seen tonight is just a very small part of it. So, guys, thanks once again, and Paul, and to Melvin, he's made quite a difference. And a lot of food for thought tonight, and I did note down a few things you said. What the Tenants Involvement Group do, they give me so much impartial but expert advice, unintentionally expert advice, but they really show me exactly how people are thinking, and it's just so important for that. He also mentioned the New Milton estate. Now, this is something I've been thinking about for quite some time. I don't like the name, I never have done. But then again, we have to be very careful about what we suggest it might become. So that's something that requires a lot of sensitivity owing to the names of the roads in that area. Today, very briefly, as you know, I went to Fording Bridge with Councillors Miller and Phil Woods, and looked at the new houses being built by Carla Homes, and they are absolutely fabulous, quite frankly. You know, the first houses we went into are for social rent. Absolutely superb. You know, I couldn't find any fault anywhere. Next door were two houses that were put onto Facebook this morning for shared ownership. Exactly the same spec, well, slightly different for the shared ownership. They've got lids over the front doors and they've got EV charging points on the side. But that's it. That's the only difference. Over the road are some houses for full private ownership purchase. So what's interesting is this estate notion is not being used. There's no demarcation. Everyone's mixed together. And it'll be very interesting to see how this evolves over time, because, well, basically it removes the stigma, apart from everything else. And hopefully we have tenants that actually will appreciate the fact that, you know, we're all part of the same community. And around Fording Bridge, that's quite beautiful. What else have I got to whittle on about? Oh yeah, end of this month I'm going to Ashurst. Again, there's some new Vivid homes being built in Ashurst. Very exciting there. They're also building for shared ownership. Shared ownership is really taking off now. You know, and there's another development happening in near Everton Nursery soon. That was given a nod this morning. So there's a lot of really good stuff. And finally, the actual Hythe Hospital development, which will be formally opened very shortly. The developers are going to be given an award by the NHBC, the National House Building Johnnies, because of the quality and style of the development. So that'll be interesting to see how well that's handled. That's 22 units for social rent, and that's just so important in that area with such a high demand. So absolutely thrilled by that. It's pretty nice being this portfolio holder, by the way, in case you haven't realised it. I'm quite enjoying it.
Thank you. Any questions of the portfolio holder? In which case I'll move on to the work programme. That's on pages 363 to 364. I think we just note that at this stage it's a work in progress. And the last item, any items the chairman decides are urgent. Strangely, I have none. But I would like to thank all members and the officers for their forbearance tonight. It was a long agenda, but I think we've actually explored the agenda, and you know, we are a committee that is meant to scrutinise. And members, I think you did an excellent job. To the officers, I apologise if we put you under pressure. But that's the work of this committee, and I think we asked meaningful questions. And when you do that, sometimes time management is difficult. So that's my fault as chairman. But thank you all very much for attending on it tonight.